Chapter 169. What are you doing here? Yi Qing Luo's fingers curled into a wisp of his black hair, twining around her fingers. Dmo Xian's thin lips hooked up slightly, whispering, I missed you, so I came to see you. Sneaking into the Heavenly Academy in the middle of the night and touching the female dormitory. If the guard saw you, you will be regarded as a rapist. Yi Qing Luo tugged at his long hair, raised her head and looked at him playfully. But when she raised her head, she was met with a pair of peach blossom eyes. When they looked at each other, there seemed to be an electric current. Her body and mind suddenly went numb. Her heart was beating wildly. Dmo Xian's brows were full of laziness. His 5 fingers lightly lifted her chin. Plucking is a flower. I wonder if a Luo is willing to let me pluck you. Yi Qing Luo's cheeks flushed red. These words, why did it sound like he was expressing his feelings to her? Don't speak, it means you agree. Dmo Xian's lips hooked up. The hand on her chin suddenly buckled her body, along with the strength of the man's fingertips, moved closer to the man. Immediately, that peerless face enlarged in her pupils. Warm lips pasted on her lips. Originally, it was just a simple touch. Yi Qing Luo reacted and subconsciously stepped back. But the man's arm increased the strength. The big palm fell on the back of her head, forcefully deepening the kiss. He invaded her territory, occupying all her sweetness. Yi Qing Luo's breathing was rapid. Her mind was blank. The strength of her body seemed to be drained by Dmo Xian. Her whole body was numb. She had no consciousness to resist. Being hugged by him, being touched by him, she was used to it. It was nothing. But why was it that even kisses, she was used to it? She shouldn't be towards Dmo Xian. This thought made Yi Qing Luo quiver. The whole person immediately regained her senses. Woo, woo! Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes revealed anger, raised her fist, struggling to pound on Dmo Xian's chest. But Dmo Xian seemed to deliberately go against her. The more she struggled, the fiercer he kissed, as if he wanted to kiss away all her reason and swallow her into his stomach. It was until the man's jet-black eyes turned deep black before he released Yi Qing Luo's lips. Facing Yi Qing Luo's angry and embarrassed expression, Dmo Xian was a cat that had stolen a fish. His lips curled into a satisfied smile. Looks like I picked the right flower. Dmo Xian gave a low laugh as his fingers caressed his lips, seemingly wanting to continue. The taste is not bad. His actions, his words, made Yi Qing Luo feel even more ashamed and indignant. She raised her arm and was about to slap him. Her speed was fast, but Dmo Xian's speed was even faster. Just as he made his move, he felt a grip on his wrist. The man's large palm held her tightly and then pulled her into his embrace. Yi Qing Luo's face bumped into Dmo Xian's chest. The fresh and elegant smell of sandalwood was getting thicker, as though it was going to make Yi Qing Luo faint. Emperor, Ink, Mystic. Just as Yi Qing Luo was about to lash out at Dmo Xian, he immediately changed the topic. Ah, Luo, I'm here to return your things. You. Yi Qing Luo gritted her teeth in anger. Damn it. This man was definitely her nemesis, wasn't he? Once she met him, she would definitely be at a disadvantage. He didn't play the cards according to common sense. Sure enough, it was a world where the bigger fist was the hard truth. She couldn't beat Dmo Xian in a fight, couldn't scold Dmo Xian. Even her sarcastic remarks could be ignored by Dmo Xian. Chapter 170. Ow, ow, ow! The shrill cry of a pet beast came from behind him. This sound made Yi Qing Luo's heart tremble. She didn't have the mood to criticize Dmo Xian. Yi Qing Luo used both her hands and feet to push Dmo Xian away. The moment she turned around, she saw a white fluffy ball standing behind her. Snow-white fur without any impurities. A pair of dark eyes were glowing with a watery luster. as if it was acting coquettishly. Wasn't it the missing Chi-Chi? Yi Qing Luo opened her arms to it. Her eyes were filled with joy. Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi's tiger eyes were sparkling. Its little legs kicked and scuttled into Yi Qing Luo's arms. Yi Qing Luo picked it up and rubbed her little face on its furry head as her lips curled into an elegant arc. Demo Xian leaned on one side. His hands crossed over his chest. The cold moonlight spilled in from the window, plated that handsome face with a layer of dazzling silver edge. Dmo Xian's pair of sparkling crystal peach blossom eyes squinted slightly, outlining a long and narrow demonic arc. His thin lips curled up slightly, his eyes locked deeply on Yi Qing Luo. He smiled at Chi-Chi, smiling till his eyes were curved. That face that usually looked cold and arrogant and glamorous, was actually exceptionally gentle. His eyes couldn't help but become gentle. A pair of warm jade eyes gazed at Yi Qing Luo. Outside the window, Wind, who was hiding in the dark, almost fell down from the branch when he saw the scene. Was this still the cold and ruthless Overlord in his heart? Dmo Xian smiled faintly. He was looking at Yi Qing Luo tenderly when he saw Yi Qing Luo's pink lips imprinted on Chi-Chi's forehead. His brows suddenly trembled. Dmo Xian strode forward, stretched out his hand, and pulled Chi-Chi out from Yi Qing Luo's arms. Holding its neck, his expression was ugly. "Are you male or female?" "Oh." Yi Qing Luo was just about to scold him for being crazy again when she heard Dmo Xian's question. The corners of her mouth twitched. "Damn, what does male or female have to do with you?" Yi Qing Luo stretched out her hand to snatch. Dmo Xian turned around and she pounced on empty air. The man lifted Chi-Chi and locked eyes with it. At this moment, that jet black peach blossom eyes. Where was there any glimmer when he looked at Yi Qing Luo earlier? Chi-Chi's hair stood up, and under Dmo Xian's threatening glare, it tucked its tail between its legs and whimpered twice. "Speak." Chi-Chi wagged her tail. "Awoo!" It was one of the 4 sacred beasts, the white tiger. Of course it was a male tiger. Male? Dmo Xian's eyes narrowed as an eerie chill arose. "Rescind the contract." "Dmo Xian, you're sick." Yi Qing Luo snappily hooked onto Dmo Xian's waist and snatched Chi-Chi back with one hand. "Whether my companion is male or female has nothing to do with you." After Chi-Chi was snatched into her hands, Yi Qing Luo was about to let go of Dmo Xian when the man suddenly tightened his arms and pulled her into his embrace. "Luo threw himself at you, and you still want to run?" Dmo Xian raised his brows slightly, his slender fingers easily hooked onto Chi-Chi from Yi Qing Luo's hand. With a casual toss, Chi-Chi tumbled a few rounds in the air and fell onto the bed. The small body immediately burrowed into the mattress, only revealing a small tail. A sacred beast was actually frightened by Dmo Xian and became so obedient. Dmo Xian was really deserving of the Nirvana legend. Yi Qing Luo's mouth couldn't help twitching. "Are you done?" Chapter 171. Yi Qing Luo slapped the back of his hand fiercely. "Why did you bring my Chi-Chi out?" Dmo Xian didn't evade and let Yi Qing Luo slap him. That slap was very forceful. Even Chi-Chi, who was curled up in the quilt, peeked out its little head and looked at them with twinkling eyes. However, the man's expression didn't change. Instead, he bent down, and his thin lips were almost on Yi Qing Luo's neck. His hot breath sprayed on her skin bit by bit. "I picked it up casually. It has your scent on it." "Picked up?" Was her Chi-Chi so easy to pick up? Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes and looked at Chi-Chi. "You were really picked up by him?" Chi-Chi blinked and nodded its head. Luo doesn't believe me." Dmo Xian turned her face and made her look at him. The man's face was full of resentment as he cupped Yi Qing Luo's face with both hands. "Luo, do you think that I have ulterior motives towards this male tiger?" Yi Qing Luo's eyes twitched. This Was this really the legendary Overlord? Moreover, he was too obsessed with Chi-Chi's gender? You speak as if your nine-tailed fox is not a female. Yi-Ching Luo rolled her eyes and pulled away the man's hand that was caressing her face. Nope. Then that's it, your fox is a female. Yi-Ching Luo's words stopped abruptly as her eyes widened. What the hell? Such a flirtatious nine-tailed fox, was it not a female? In her mind, a picture suddenly came up. A seductive man dressed in a white velvet robe with coquettish eyes winking at DMO, simply too beautiful. So beautiful that Yi-Ching Luo couldn't bear to think about it any more. Your taste is quite heavy. Yi-Ching Luo's lips twitched as she laughed dryly. All right, since you have sent Chi-Chi back, go do whatever you need to do. I need to rest. After DMO Xian's teasing, Yi-Ching Luo believed his words. After all, Chi-Chi would not lie to her. She yawned and walked towards the bed. Just as he took a step forward, his waist suddenly tightened, and his body suddenly became light. When she came back to her senses, she was already half in the man's arms and lying on the bed. The man's black hair spilled over the bed like clouds and smoke. His purple robe was like a blossoming mandala, adding a touch of demonic charm to his appearance. He turned sideways, with one hand under Yi-Ching Luo's head and the other around her waist. Yi-Ching Luo's entire face was buried in his chest. His sandalwood scent filled his nostrils. You, go to sleep. DMO Xian's thin lips curled into a slight arc as he shut his eyes tightly. I'm sleepy too. Go to sleep if you're tired. What are you trying to do by snatching my bed? Yi-Ching Luo roared in her heart. Her hands and feet struggled, trying to push the man away. But DMO Xian's body was like a huge lock, trapping her, and she was unable to move at all. His arms moved up slightly and gently covered the back of her head. His magnetic, low, husky voice was like a lullaby in her ears. Be good. Don't make a fuss. Go to sleep. His big palm, through the black hair, exuded a scorching heat. It was warm and made her feel at ease. This was a feeling that Yi-Ching Luo had never felt since her past life. While she was in a daze, the shallow breathing sound in her ears gradually calmed down. Had he fallen asleep? Yi-Ching Luo moved a little and sensed no other changes in DMO Xian's breath. He might really be sleepy. Yi-Ching Luo's body stiffened and no longer moved. Perhaps this embrace was too warm and made her feel at ease. Or perhaps Yi-Ching Luo was also sleepy. After a while, she fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 172. This time, Yi-Ching Luo slept exceptionally sweetly. When she was in the hidden family, Yi-Ching Luo had developed the habit of being vigilant at all times. Even in her sleep, the slightest sound could wake her up. In particular, her strong perception was too sharp. She had never tasted the feeling of sleeping soundly. This time, Yi-Ching Luo actually woke up after the academy's bell rang several times, until Lu Xiaoyu came in to urge her to get up. She then slowly opened her eyes. DMO Xian was long gone. Her hand touched the side of her body. It was icy cold. He should have left for a period of time. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes were filled with astonishment as she sat on the bed in a daze. She had never slept so comfortably. She didn't even know when DMO Xian left. She didn't even know when Lu Xiaoyu entered her room. Her slender white palm, inch by inch, moved to her heart, her 5 fingers clutching the collar of her chest tightly. What drug did DMO Xian give her? It actually made her change her habits for many years, unknowingly. He was really her nemesis. The academy's bell rang again. This was the last reminder bell for the gathering in the square. Yi-Ching Luo immediately got up, dressed herself up with the fastest speed, changed into a set of light clothes, and gathered with Lu Xiaoyu at the square. This time was neither too early nor too late. The square was also considered quiet. Other than this batch of freshmen, there was a batch of students in the high profound class area, and a few students in the intermediate profound class area, undergoing morning training. In front of the freshmen, there were already 2 training instructors dressed in tight martial uniforms, with a big drill word printed on their backs. Their faces were cold, expressionless, and full of anger and majesty. Just by standing there, their imposing manner had already suppressed this group of freshmen. 400 to 500 people lined up under the call of the 2 training instructors. Dear freshmen, we are the instructors in charge of the freshmen's morning training. The 2 instructors called out. The instructor on the left had a cold face, his eyes were cold. My surname is He. Although the instructor on the right also had a majestic aura, the corner of his mouth hooked up with a slight smile. Coupled with the contrast of instructor He, it seemed easier to get along. My surname is Chu. Just call me Instructor Chu. Hello, Instructor He, Instructor Chu. The freshmen immediately stood up straight and shouted in unison. When training ends, it will be time for you to be divided into classes. This time's training will also be integrated into the overall results of your assessment. The final result will be the standard for your class placement. Instructor Chu smiled and explained today's training. Each of you has a piece of paper in your hands. After you are divided into classes, you can take it to the Faculty Affairs office to collect your uniform. From tomorrow onwards, you have to wear the academy uniform when you come to the plaza for training. Tomorrow? Do you still have to wake up so early tomorrow? An extremely low voice complained, I'd rather sleep in the dormitory than listen to your nagging. Although his voice was low, it could still be heard clearly in such a silent situation. All the students turned their gazes towards the direction of the grumbling, although these words were what they were thinking. But, roasting in front of the instructor, did he not want to stay in the academy anymore? Everyone wanted to see who this incredibly stupid person was. Students in the 5th row of the 2nd row, step out. Instructor, his voice was cold as he shouted, but after a long time no one stepped out. On the contrary, the students who were called out were still looking left and right, as if trying to find out who the instructor was calling. She only reacted when the person beside her pushed her. Me. You. What right do you have to ask me to step out? She suddenly blushed and bit her red lips. Chapter 173. Based on what? Instructor Ho's eyes were cold and his face showed a sarcastic smile. He walked straight to Shangguan Liuli, stretched out his hand, and easily lifted her up. How dare you touch me? I am the 5th Missy of the Shangguan family. Shangguan Liuli was so angry that her face turned red and struggled to slap the instructor's hand. Instructor Ho's hand was as tough as a stone. No matter how Shangguan Liuli pulled, it didn't budge at all. On the other hand, her exquisite hair and her gorgeous robe were already in a mess due to the struggle. When Instructor Ho threw her to the ground, Shangguan Liuli looked like a crazy woman. Her image was ruined. Before Shangguan Liuli could cry out, Instructor Ho had already walked in front of her and bent down slightly. His cold voice was extremely dignified. Based on the fact that I am your instructor, based on the fact that you have entered the Heavenly Academy, if you don't want to learn, then get lost. Wah! A sharp cry burst out from Shangguan Liuli's mouth. She covered her face, lying on the ground and crying bitterly. Her mouth kept on cursing. Yi Qing Luo heard her own name and suddenly felt speechless. Damn. She was shot even though she was lying down. This girl's princess syndrome was probably in the late stage. Shut up. Instructor Ho shouted impatiently. Shangguan Liuli had never been shouted at like this before. When she was easily lifted up by Instructor Ho, she had no strength to resist and had an instinctive sense of fear towards Instructor Ho. At this time, when she heard Instructor Ho's stern shout, her mouth immediately flattened and sobbed a few times, not daring to make a sound, and looked at Instructor Ho timidly. Either return to the team or get lost now. Shangguan Liuli bit her red lips, wiped her tears, and moved back to the team. Why did everyone have to bully her? She was bullied by Yi Qing Luo yesterday and didn't even return to the dormitory. She could only stay outside with Shangguan Fengyi for a night. Shangguan Fengyi had slapped her and was worried that she would really complain to the Shangguan family head, so he had no choice but to accompany her. Now, Shangguan Lili was so sleepy that she was dozing off and was bullied by the instructor. She wanted to throw a tantrum and go back to complain to her father. But no matter how stupid Shangguan Lili was, she was still very clear about the internal strife in her family. Her profound heart, jade, and talent were the reasons why she had been doted on since she was young. After entering the Heavenly Academy, her status in the Shangguan family would rise by a few levels. Now he's being chased back to the Shangguan family by the instructor? Then her many years of hard work would all be wasted. They would also become the laughingstock of the Shangguan family. Staying in the Heavenly Academy, with third brother's help, it would only be a matter of minutes to take revenge. Instructor Ho sneered when he saw her lowering her head obediently. His gaze swept across the freshmen and said in a cold tone, "The Heavenly Academy is not short of students with outstanding qualifications, nor students with great power and influence. Don't even think of using the same tricks you used outside in the academy. The reason why the Heavenly Academy is hailed as the best academy is because of the Heavenly Academy's strength." The freshmen nodded in agreement. With an example of killing the chicken to warn the monkeys, these freshmen, who were originally suppressed by Instructor Ho's imposing manner and did not dare to speak, even their breathing became more cautious. Well, what should be said has been said by Instructor Ho. Although the words are not pleasant to hear, but every sentence is from the bottom of his heart. If the freshmen want to study in the Heavenly Academy for a long time, then remember what Instructor Ho said. Instructor Chu's mouth hooked up into a faint smile. His cold and stiff face became slightly gentle. Chapter 174. The purpose of your coming to the Heavenly Academy, is it to show off to others that you are able to get into the Heavenly Academy, or is it to become stronger, to win glory for your family, for the mainland? This question was extremely incisive. It could be said that more than 70% of the freshmen present were trying their best to get into the Heavenly Academy because of its reputation. To be able to enter the Heavenly Academy, even if it was in the low class, was a symbol of status. In the future, when you walk outside the academy and show off your identity as a student of the Heavenly Academy, you would be admired by everyone. This was the power of the Heavenly Academy's reputation. Just like how everyone's expression changed when they heard the words Overlord, it was the same logic. Therefore, when Instructor Chu asked the question, none of the freshmen answered. Yi Qing Luo didn't speak either. She still understood the principle of shooting the bird that sticks out. Before she had enough strength, it was better to keep a low profile. On the day of the ability assessment, she had already been in the limelight with D.M.O. Xian's escort. As the saying goes, there's always someone better than you out there. Her high profile would only invite some unnecessary trouble. I think you already have the answer in your heart. Instructor Chu said indifferently after a long silence. He crossed his arms in front of his chest, and his lips curled up into a mocking smile. Whether it's to show off to others or to raise my profound rank or to make myself stronger, there's only one starting point, is to learn. If you come to the Heavenly Academy and learn nothing, will others laugh at you for being mediocre, or will they laugh at the Heavenly Academy for not knowing how to teach? Sounds of people sucking in cold breaths could be heard in the square. Instructor Chu's words woke everyone up from their dreams. Yi Qing Luo's lips raised slightly. She was very interested in the teaching methods of these two instructors. These two were definitely brothers who had been partners for many years. One was cold and domineering, the other convinced with reason. With such a combination, there were very few freshmen who could escape from their control. These students only thought that once they were admitted into the Heavenly Academy, it would represent infinite glory and a symbol of status. But they had never thought that after entering the Heavenly Academy, if they stagnated and were unable to advance to the profound grade. In the eyes of the world, It would never be said that the Heavenly Academy with the best school did not know how to teach. It would only say, in the Heavenly Academy, which was full of talents, their aptitudes seemed extremely mediocre. It was such a good starting point for them to speed up their growth, but there were no results. It was simply a waste. At that time, all the brilliance would turn into a shadow and cover all the light. Do you want to become stronger? The freshmen were still in a state of shock when they suddenly heard Instructor Chu's explosive roar and were shocked. Yes, he replied in a scattered manner. Louder. Yes, louder. Yes. Do you want to let the light of being admitted into the Heavenly Academy shine brighter? Yes. Good. Now, run 5 laps around the square. All right. After hundreds of people answered in unison, they finally realized what was going on. 5 laps? Are you kidding me? The plaza was so huge that one could not see the end of it at a glance. Even if they were on the inside, circling 1 round would be fatal, not to mention 5 rounds. First row, start running. Second row, follow up. Instructor Chu did not seem to notice the resentment in the freshman's eyes and directly shouted out the slogan. 5 laps is a bit too much. Instructor, can you just run 1 lap, just 1 lap? This early in the morning, after running 1 lap, I won't have the energy to do anything for the rest of the day. Instructor, you must be joking with us, right? Chapter 175. Just as the crowd were whining and complaining incessantly, Yiqing Luo had already taken the lead and started running. She estimated that running 1 round in the inner line of the square was about 2 kilometers and 5 rounds would be 10 kilometers. For ordinary people, no one could run all the way. But these things, in her previous life, when Yiqing Luo was trained as the head of the hidden family, not to mention 10 kilometers. Even if it was 20 kilometers, she had to run nonstop. This could train a person's physical strength, endurance, and mental power. A lot of training was based on running. Hundreds of freshmen saw Yiqing Luo spontaneously running, and all of their faces turned ugly. If the students collectively protested, the instructors might reduce the number of laps because no one listened to the command. They didn't expect Yiqing Luo to take the initiative to run. Then Lu Xiaoyu also followed. The 2 instructors' sight fell on Yiqing Luo. They had been in the academy for such a long time and had always been the freshman instructors, so naturally they had a set of ability to judge people. From the moment Yiqing Luo stood among the freshmen, the 2 of them had already noticed this girl. From the beginning to the end, there was no hint of impatience on her face, or perhaps no expression. Unlike the other freshmen, although they didn't say anything, but there was some dissatisfaction towards the instructors on the surface. Looking at her proper running posture, uniform footsteps, and breathing, the admiration in the 2 instructors' eyes was even more obvious. Shangguan Luli saw all these, especially when she saw the instructors actually admired Yiqing Luo. A sense of imbalance surged in her heart. She clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. Wasn't it just running? Who didn't know how to do it? She had made the instructors unhappy earlier. Now she would pull the instructor's impression of her back. Shangguan Li took a deep breath, and with a burst of strength, she quickly rushed over. In a short while, she had already reached the front of Yiqing Luo. When she overtook Yiqing Luo, she didn't forget to throw her a provocative look and immediately left Yiqing Luo far behind. Qing Luo, do you want to chase after her? Lu Xiaoyu followed beside Yiqing Luo, maintaining the same speed as her. Looking at Shangguan Li's arrogant look, she revealed a look of disdain. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. Once you start running, you can't stop after 5 laps. Let her show off now later on. She will suffer. I suddenly feel like you're very black-bellied. Lu Xiaoyu rolled her eyes and instantly understood the meaning of Yiqing Luo's words. Then wouldn't I be in trouble? 5 laps. It would take my life. Run slowly. The instructor only said 5 laps and didn't set a time limit. Yiqing Luo glanced at Lu Xiaoyu. She believed that Lu Xiaoyu definitely had the ability to finish the 5 laps with her. Lu Xiaoyu's running posture was as standard as hers, and she adjusted her breathing very well. She also knew how to use profound qi to relieve the fatigue in her legs. Although it would be very difficult for them to complete 5 laps, they would definitely be able to complete it. That's right. Let's run first. When those people start running and we're done, we can watch them. Lu Xiaoyu nodded with a smile. Then he reached out to touch his stomach. If I had known this would happen, I would have secretly brought some pastries and hid them in my clothes. If I had something to eat, I would definitely be more energetic now. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. 1 ran away, 2 ran away, 3 ran away. Following that, several freshmen lined up one by one and started running. After running 1 lap, Shangguan Luli, who initially left Yi Qing Luo half a lap behind, obviously couldn't hold on any longer. She ran with all her might, and towards the end, her legs were getting more and more tired. Even lifting up was extremely strenuous. But unfortunately, she couldn't stop. There were too many pairs of eyes staring at her. If she stopped now, others might ridicule her. Chapter 176. Yi Qing Luo's expression didn't change. Her face wasn't red and she wasn't out of breath. He easily overtook Shangguan Liuli, who was already exhausted. When a gust of fragrant wind passed by, Shangguan Liuli panted heavily. Her face flushed and stared at Yi Qing Luo. She couldn't swallow the anger in her heart and couldn't spit it out. It was suffocating in her chest. She wanted to speed up and overtake Yi Qing Luo again to teach her a lesson. But Shangguan Liuli felt as if there was 1,000 catty boulder pressing on her legs. She couldn't lift it at all. In particular, Shangguan Liuli was still wearing the same dress when she came to the school yesterday, gorgeous and cumbersome. After running 1 round, she was drenched in sweat. Her messy hair stuck to her face and neck, and her dress was too heavy. Shangguan Liuli took a deep breath and gritted her teeth. Her unyielding spirit was aroused by Yi Qing Luo. Shangguan Liuli clenched her fist and was about to take a step to chase after Yi Qing Luo. But just as she tried to lift her foot, a force suddenly hit her from behind. Shangguan Liuli immediately saw stars and staggered and fell to the ground. Lu Xiaoyu's charming laughter came into her ears. "Oh, Shangguan student, I'm so sorry. I was too tired and didn't notice you stopped. Do you want me to help you up?" A slender, white hand stretched out in front of her. "You obviously did it on purpose." Shangguan Liuli was furious. "Pa," she shook off Lu Xiaoyu's hand. "You are in cahoots with her. You are in cahoots to bully me." I really didn't mean it." Lu Xiaoyu covered the back of her hand, which was red from the slap, and looked at the instructor with a wronged look. Instructor Ho's face was sullen. The iron rod in his hand stabbed the ground fiercely. "Continue to run! Who dares to stop before 5 laps are completed? Report to the low profound class now." Lu Xiaoyu looked frightened. Her eyes were filled with grievance as she looked at Shangguan Liuli, bit her lips, and turned to chase after Yi Qing Luo. Shangguan Liuli lay on the ground and cried out loud. Beside her, the freshmen ran past her one by one. Instructor Ho narrowed his eyes and shouted coldly, "That new student, if you don't want to run, then get out here. Don't block the other student's path." When the freshmen heard this, they could not help but burst into laughter. They were exhausted from all the running, and having a good show to watch could at least refresh their spirits. Run. Not running. Shangguan Liuli lay on the ground, feeling conflicted. She didn't have the strength to run, and she didn't have the means to get first place and win back the instructor's impression. If she didn't run, she would be assigned to the low, profound class. At that time, wouldn't those people at home who wanted to see her make a fool of herself be able to make a fuss about it? Before entering the Heavenly Academy, she had already vowed in front of her father that she would definitely enter the high, profound class together with her 3rd brother. Thinking about how she would not be loved by her family in the future, Shangguan Liuli was filled with unwillingness. Biting her lower lip, she stood up and continued running. Yi Qing Luo deliberately jogged slowly, waiting for Lu Xiaoyu to catch up with her. There was no trace of grievance on Lu Xiaoyu's face at this time. She snorted. I can't stand people who are so arrogant without strength. You still want me to be careful. Aren't you afraid that she will bear a grudge against you for targeting her so openly? What am I afraid of? Lu Xiaoyu, am not afraid of anything other than having nothing to eat. Lu Xiaoyu proudly raised her head, revealing a smug smile. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up, her heart warmed. Chapter 177. By the second lap, quite a number of people had chosen to give up and fell to the ground, gasping for air. There were still more than 300 people persisting in the inner circle of the square. The two leaders in front were still expressionless. Those 300 students who were still persisting stared at Yi Qing Luo and Lu Xiaoyu with bloodshot eyes. They were roaring in their hearts. Where did these two perverts come from? Couldn't they just happily be freshmen together? If it wasn't for the sweat on their faces and soaked clothes, everyone would have suspected that they were cheating. They were not even panting after running for so long. By the third lap, more than half of the students had left. There were more than 100 people left in the field. Lu Xiaoyu was also left behind. Her face was slightly flushed and she was panting. Obviously, her physical strength could no longer support her to move forward at a constant speed. Don't worry about me. You run first. I will stop myself when I can't do it anymore. Lu Xiaoyu's breathing was extremely heavy. Her legs had already slowed down as she spoke. Yi Qing Luo nodded slightly, quickly adjusted her breathing, and began to speed up. When everyone saw Yi Qing Luo speeding up, they all felt like dying. Damn, she was definitely a pervert. Was she a horse in her past life? Lu Xiaoyu's eyes revealed a strange look as she stared at Yi Qing Luo's back in a daze. Could it be that Yi Qing Luo had not used her full strength? Was it to match her speed? The corners of Lu Xiaoyu's mouth curled up a little, and her bright eyes were also tinged with a smile. It seemed that this trip to the Heavenly Academy was not in vain. By the fourth lap, there were only 20 to 30 people left in the field. There were quite a number of people lying on the ground, half dead and unable to get up. The instructors did not have the slightest bit of pity. They called 2 old students from the low class and carried them down. Yi Qing Luo did not care how many students were following behind her. She just constantly adjusted her breathing. Her face was not red and she was not out of breath. It was just an illusion to others. In fact, by the fourth lap, Yi Qing Luo's breathing had already become somewhat heavy. His legs also gradually became heavier and he was no longer as nimble as before. However, there is no such word as give up in Yi Qing Luo's dictionary. Since she had chosen to run, she would definitely finish the whole course. Yi Qing Luo clenched her teeth and persevered as she continued forward. It was until the 5th round was completed when Yi Qing Luo slowly came to a stop. The 2 instructors stood at the finish line. Their cold faces curled into an extremely shallow arc. Congratulations, you're great! This was the first person to complete 5 laps of the square since the start of the lesson. The students of low, intermediate, and high profound classes who were watching from the sidelines were all amazed. One had to know, these 2 instructors had never praised anyone since they became instructors. One by one, they craned their necks to see who this freshman who had run 5 laps and was praised by the 2 cold-faced instructors was. Yi Qing Luo was neither arrogant nor rash as she gave a decent smile. Thank you for the instructor's recognition. After saying that, she nodded politely and walked to the side of the square. She began to stretch her limbs and sat down to stretch and relax her muscles. The instructor's eyes were filled with admiration. This girl had quite a lot of common sense. At this time, the 30 people in the field could not hold on any longer on the 4th lap. Some fainted and some retreated in defeat. Sparsely, there were only 3 people left, still staggering as they ran. One of them was Lu Xiaoyu. She was already drenched in sweat. Her footsteps were heavy and her whole body was swaying, but she insisted on running. Chapter 178. These 3 people must be crazy. Do they really want to put their lives on the line? They don't want their lives, but we do. My overall score in the ability assessment is not bad. Even if I fail this run, I can at least get into the intermediate class. Even if I enter the high profound class, I still need to be alive. The freshmen who had fallen on the ground were all complaining. Humans were like this. Once they couldn't persevere, they would continue to say sour words, believing that their persistence was simply stupid. To put it bluntly, it was just an excuse for their cowardice. It was just to make him feel more at ease when he was a coward. Lu Xiaoyu's body was already on the verge of collapsing. She was at the front. Her legs were like lead weights, step by step forward. Fortunately, Yi Qing Luo reminded them that they were dressed in black today. Even if they were sweating profusely, it wouldn't reveal the color of their inner clothes. But the other female students were miserable. She was drenched in sweat, and her thin muslin clothes clung to her curvaceous figure. Of course, everyone was tired at this time and didn't have the mood to care about these. Xiaoyu, come on, just a few more steps, and we'll be there. Yi Qing Luo stopped her leg-stretching action and jogged slowly towards the square. Although she was still a little tired after stretching her muscles, but it wasn't as tiring as before after running 5 laps. She came to Lu Xiaoyu's side and smiled slightly. If you successfully run 5 laps, I'll treat you to roast chicken in the cafeteria tonight. Perhaps it was the word roast chicken that made Lu Xiaoyu's eyes lit up. Or perhaps it was because Yi Qing Luo ran to her side after running 5 laps and continued to accompany her for another half lap. Lu Xiaoyu's exhausted and sweaty face also showed a trace of determination. One cheered in her ear, the other ran with all her might. Finally, they reached the end of the 5th lap at the same time. Lu Xiaoyu couldn't even stand steadily. Yi Qing Luo supported her to stand for about half an incense's time before she let go of Lu Xiaoyu and let her do the muscle-stretching action. The second freshman to successfully run 5 laps. This batch of freshmen was really eye-catching. The 2 instructors' hearts swelled up and the students' hearts were boiling. Immediately after, thunderous applause resounded throughout the square. These 2 new students were absolutely worthy of this applause. Lying on the ground, Shangguan Niuli's eyes were filled with ruthless hatred as she stood among the freshmen who were unable to move. She was surrounded by a few of her good friends from outside the academy. They were all exhausted, but they still had to serve Shangguan Niuli. 5th Miss, don't be angry. These 2 people are not to be trifled with. I will never swallow this down. Shangguan Niuli's eyes were vicious, like a sharp knife cutting Yi Qing Luo. Why was it that Yi Qing Luo could complete 5 laps, but she couldn't? If it wasn't for Yi Qing Luo's provocation, forcing her to use all her strength first, she would definitely be able to run 5 laps. Now, the glory of these applause also belonged to her. The more he thought about it, the darker the darkness in his heart grew. My roast chicken. Roast chicken still counts. Lu Xiaoyu rested for a while and walked towards Yi Qing Luo. As expected of a foodie, the first thing he asked was food. Yi Qing Luo smiled. Of course, tonight please. I suddenly feel that all the hard work today is worth it. Lu Xiaoyu made a greedy look and licked her lips. Chapter 179. There was a silence in the square. Just a little bit more, and the 2 of them actually collapsed. If they woke up, wouldn't they be so angry that they vomited blood? Look, not only did they not complete the running task, they almost lost half their lives. This was the first time they saw and heard of running until they fainted. Luckily, we didn't insist on running. We have to fight with our lives. Just a little bit more. Fate makes fools of people. Fate makes fools of people. One by one, the freshmen shook their heads and sighed. Although there was a sense of pity in their words, it was obvious that they were gloating over their misfortune. Instructor Ho slowly walked to the position where the instructor stood. His face was cold and his voice was cold and ruthless. "Return to the team!" Those freshmen lying on the ground had not even caught their breath. Their legs were so heavy that they couldn't even stand straight. When they heard the instructors shout, one by one, they wailed and flopped on the ground, refusing to get up. "I'll give you a count of 10, those freshmen who have not returned to the team. Don't come back in the future." Instructor Ho directly raised a finger and said coldly, 1. The freshman's face changed. They didn't dare to complain anymore, struggled to get up, and staggered back to the team. After counting to 10, everyone obediently stood back in the team. "Today's training ends here. I have seen your general strength. In the next month, I will customize the training method according to each of your strength." Instructor Ho put his hands behind his back and said majestically, "Today is just the beginning. There are more rigorous training waiting for you in the future." For a moment, the sound of the freshmen inhaling cold air came one after another. Today was already half their lives. Damn, there were more rigorous training. Wasn't that the rhythm of them dying on the training ground? Tomorrow at the same time, gather at the freshman training ground. Instructor Ho said faintly. His cold gaze swept past Yiqing Luo and paused for a moment. "The students who passed today's training can report 2 hours later." Everyone looked at Yiqing Luo and Lu Xiaoyu with envious gazes. They were extremely resentful. Why didn't they insist on running the 5 laps? After Instructor Ho finished, he squinted at Instructor Chu. Instructor Chu understood and took a step forward, pointing to several directions in the crowd. "You," he was referring to Yiqing Luo and Lu Xiaoyu. "Both of you passed the training." Lu Xiaoyu excitedly hugged Yiqing Luo tightly as she cried out, "Finally, we can enjoy our breakfast to our heart's content." Also, the 2 freshmen, who were just a few steps away from completing 5 laps, have passed the training. Once these words were spoken, some of the new students were immediately unconvinced. Why are they considered to have passed? A few steps away means a few steps away. If you haven't finished 5 laps, you haven't finished. Right. No matter if it was a step or a few steps, it was still a difference. It doesn't count as passing the training. The 2 instructors slightly frowned and scolded in a low voice with a sullen face. "Am I the instructor or are you the instructor? If you have the strength, why are you still standing here feeling indignant? Why don't you have the strength to continue running? Even if they missed by half a lap, they still passed. If you have the ability to impress us, you can also pass the training." Seeing that the instructor was enraged, the freshman didn't dare to speak anymore. However, his face was filled with indignation. Although he said it, his heart refused to accept it. The instructors' faces were cold. Just as they were about to dismiss the group and let the freshmen go back, they heard a clear voice ring out. Chapter 180. Humans have unlimited potential. As long as you are willing to work hard and persevere, you will be able to stimulate it. Hard work may not necessarily lead to success, but if you don't work hard, you will never succeed. Everyone's sight followed the voice and looked over. Yiqing Luo was expressionless, her pink lips slightly pursed. Obviously, her eyes were cold and emotionless, but her whole body exuded a terrifying aura. That pair of charming eyes, the corners of her eyes hooked into a narrow arc, enchanting yet covered by a layer of snow and frost. The reason why those 2 students can pass the training is because of their persistence and their hard work, which moved the instructor. Yiqing Luo's cold eyes swept through the crowd one by one. Her lips hooked into a mocking smile. And all of you, other than being jealous of others and envious of others, have you ever persevered and worked hard to pass the training? His words caused the new students, who were still clamoring, to lower their heads in silence. Instructor Chu looked at Yiqing Luo. This girl had aroused his interest. When she said these words, her attitude was neither servile nor overbearing, not deliberately showing off. And everything was said in an orderly manner. No wonder old man Gui wanted to take her as his disciple the first time he saw this girl. He cleared his throat and gestured for everyone to focus on him again. Just as he was about to speak, a sharp and unwilling voice came from the crowd. Yiqing Luo, on what basis do you say that we did not work hard? We're so tired from running that we can't even lift our legs, and some students were carried to the medical hall. Don't tell me these people did not work hard? Shangguan Liuli couldn't stand Yiqing Luo showing off. In her eyes, Yiqing Luo's action today was deliberately going against her, deliberately trying to destroy her prestige. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched with a faint smile. How can you be sure that those people really fainted? You. Shangguan Liuli's face was livid. Pointing at Yiqing Luo, her fingers were trembling. Enough. Do you think you are not tired enough? If you're not tired enough, run another 5 laps around the square. Instructor Ho furrowed his brows and scolded angrily. The freshman cried out in pain. Tired, tired to death. Since you know you're tired, why haven't you dismissed yet? The group of freshmen was startled for a moment before they cried out in joy and swarmed away. They were eager to return to their dormitories and have a good rest. Yiqing Luo supported Lu Xiaoyu. Go rest first. I'll treat you to roast chicken tonight. The moment Lu Xiaoyu heard about roast duck, her beautiful eyes sparkled as she wrapped her arms around Yiqing Luo's slender waist. No rest, no rest. Treat me to roast chicken now. As long as there's food, I'll be full of energy. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly and pulled her to the canteen. Lu Xiaoyu really deserved to be a real foodie. When the roast chicken was placed in front of her, her whole body was full of vitality and her eyes were only filled with food. After eating 2 roast chickens and a large plate of meat, Lu Xiaoyu burped in satisfaction. One meal cost Yiqing Luo 50 silver coins. After the meal, Lu Xiaoyu had eaten too much, so Yiqing Luo accompanied her to walk 1 round around the courtyard and received 2 sets of uniform before returning to the dormitory. As soon as he entered the dormitory, he heard a woman's laughter coming from inside, as if she was saying something. Yiqing Luo pushed the door and entered. In the hall, around a mahogany square table, sat 5 gorgeously dressed women. As soon as they saw Yiqing Luo, the 5 of them looked over in unison. Chapter 181. As soon as she said this, the other 4 covered their mouths and chuckled. That's right, we are not as lucky as 7th Miss Yi. Another woman also spoke in a sarcastic tone. Shangguan Liuli reclined on a soft chair, no longer in a sorry state like she was in the square. 7th Miss Yi, if you have any trick to not be tired after running 5 laps, why don't you teach us? Yiqing Luo could hear the sarcasm from each of them. These people were probably suspecting that she and Lu Xiaoyu had cheated to be able to run 5 laps. What do you mean? You. Lu Xiaoyu frowned, rolled up her sleeves, pointed at the 5 women, and scolded. Weren't you all shouting in the square that you couldn't run anymore and were exhausted? How do you still have the energy to gossip here? The 5 women's faces changed, slammed the table, and were about to get up to fight with Lu Xiaoyu. Yiqing Luo took Lu Xiaoyu's arm and walked into the room. The 5 women looked at each other and revealed a mocking smile. When Yiqing Luo walked into the room with Lu Xiaoyu and saw everything in the room, a trace of hostility flashed across her eyes. The thin quilt she laid yesterday had been replaced by a set of colorful quilts. The clean and tidy table was also filled with pearl flowers and rouge powder. There was even a rack set up at the side, on which there were many gorgeous dresses that were decorated with beautiful flowers. Obviously, her room had been occupied by others. Lu Xiaoyu's face sank and turned to Shangguan Liuli angrily. Don't go too far! I'm going too far. What can you do? Hit me if you have the ability. Shangguan Liuli stood up proudly and crossed her arms over her chest. This room, I want it. Shangguan Liuli was smart this time, taking advantage of the school's rules that students were not allowed to fight in private. No matter how angry Yiqing Luo was, she would never dare to hit her. Go check your room. Yi Qing Luo pulled the angry Lu Xiaoyu back. Only then did Lu Xiaoyu react and rush to her room. Sure enough, the things in her room were also replaced by Shangguan Liuli's things. Yi Qing Luo saw Lu Xiaoyu's flushed face and glanced around the main hall. Her and Lu Xiaoyu's luggage were piled up in the corner behind the wooden cabinet. The square wooden box that Lu Xiaoyu had carefully kept with pastries had fallen to the ground. The lid had long disappeared, and a few pieces of pastries were scattered on the ground. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly as a chilly ray shot out. She didn't want to waste time with Shangguan Liuli, but that did not mean that she would tolerate Shangguan Liuli's repeated provocations. Her room and Lu Xiaoyu's room were probably made by these 5 people. Return our things back. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a cold smile. Her voice was extremely calm. Put it back? Dream on. Shangguan Liuli slammed the table and stood up with her hands akimbo. Let me tell you, I will take whichever room I want. Don't think that you can do whatever you want in the Heavenly Academy just because you have the instructor's liking. Very good. Yi Qing Luo laughed softly. Her laughter was extremely soft, but it was filled with an invisible pressure. She spread out her 5 fingers, and a red fan appeared between her fingers. One of the ladies saw that red fan, and her face suddenly turned pale. That's the glower flame fan. It's her weapon. Yes, I've seen it during the ability assessment. This fan is very strange. Shangguan Liuli heard this, and the arrogance on her face could no longer be maintained. Chapter 182. Really? Yi Qing Luo smiled faintly. Her brows raised slightly. Her sweet, but not coquettish face added a hint of coldness. The pair of charming eyes was suffused with a trace of bloodthirsty, murderous intent. Shangguan Liuli, even outside the academy, you, the 5th Miss Shangguan, are nothing in front of me. Yi Qing Luo took a straight step forward as the corners of her lips maintained a sly smile, which didn't look like a smile. Shangguan Liuli tensed up. She had suffered a loss in Yi Qing Luo's hands previously. She immediately stood up and stood behind the other 4 women. The 4 women were also frightened by Yi Qing Luo's aura as they stood rooted to the ground, staring at her in a daze. It was until Yi Qing Luo approached that they let out a scream and dispersed. Shangguan Liuli, didn't you say that this young matriarch doesn't dare to make a move? Why should I hide? Yi Qing Luo sneered. Shangguan Liu's breathing gradually quickened as her chest heaved up and down. She was used to being pampered and had always been condescending. In Yi Qing Luo's hands, she had suffered a setback time and time again. She absolutely could not swallow this down. Now, she had 4 helpers. There was no need to be afraid of Yi Qing Luo. Who would know that they had made a move on Yi Qing Luo after walking out of this dormitory? Shangguan Liuli thought in this way as she glanced at the few women scattered by the side. These women often conspired with Shangguan Liuli outside the academy and did a lot of evil things, but to them it was just a prank. One look and they immediately understood Shangguan Liuli's meaning. The 4 women calmed down. There were 5 of them, and Shangguan Liuli was a mystic, profound cultivator. Yi Qing Luo was only one person, plus Lu Xiaoyu, who looked like a waste. Afraid that they couldn't win? Yi Qing Luo, what are you so arrogant for? Do you really think that you are the young matriarch of 3 Springs sect? Your reputation in the West Continent is a waste. Shangguan Liu's eyes were sinister. Profound qi condensed in her palm and suddenly pressed towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes. A burning feeling suddenly arose in her heart. Shangguan Liu's chest was surrounded by a red glow. A scarlet black star pattern appeared beneath her feet, and 5 stars floated out. Mystic Profound, Grade 5. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as her lips curled into a smirk of ridicule. Scarlet Heart Jade, Mystic Profound, 5th grade. No wonder Shangguan Liuli was at the Mystic Profound rank 5, but her strength was so weak. Her Jade Heart's level was too low. It was impossible to completely release the power of the Mystic Profound grade 5. Presumably, Shangguan Liuli's profound rank was rushed up with elixirs. As for Shangguan Liuli and the other 3 sisters, they only felt a powerful force enveloping them. An envious look appeared on his face, and he boldly stood on Shangguan Liuli's side. Seeing Shangguan Liuli's palm striking towards her, Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change at all. Just as the palm wind was nearing her face, Yiqing Luo suddenly stretched out her hand. Pa! A loud slap resounded through the entire dormitory. He saw Yiqing Luo grabbing Shangguan Liuli's hand with one hand, while the other hand directly flung onto Shangguan Liuli's face. Yiqing Luo had used quite a bit of strength in this slap. Shangguan Liuli's delicate little face was imprinted with a clear 5 fingerprint. I don't have the leisure to waste time with you. Either you tuck your tail between your legs when you see me next time, or I will hit you every time I see you. Chapter 183. The few ladies froze on the spot and retracted their hands that were about to strike back stiffly. They were unable to calm down the turbulent waves in their hearts. What on earth was going on? Why was Yiqing Luo able to avoid Shangguan Liuli's palm strike? Why was she able to grab Shangguan Liuli's hand so accurately? And that slap, how on earth did it land on Shangguan Liuli's face? According to the investigation, wasn't Yiqing Luo a yellow, profound 9th grade cultivator? How could she be so powerful? Go, go. There are 5 of us. Are we afraid that we can't beat her? Shangguan Liuli spat out blood from the fall. She wiped the blood stains on her lips and stood up, shouting sternly, Whoever can hurt her after we leave the academy, I will reward you with 10 gold coins. 10 gold coins. The 4 ladies' eyes lit up with excitement. As the saying goes, money makes the world go round. Although these ladies were rich young ladies, but 10 gold coins, it would take several years of salary to save up. Upon hearing this, the 4 of them looked at each other and rushed towards Yiqing Luo at the same time. Qing Luo. Lu Xiaoyu frowned and was about to rush up and join in the battle. You watch from the side. Yiqing Luo glanced at Lu Xiaoyu and curled her lips. Immediately, she leaped into the midst of the 4. These 4 ladies were able to enter the Heavenly Academy, so they had some ability. Their reaction and adaptability were not bad. When they attacked from the left and right, Yiqing Luo suddenly squatted down. The feather fan in her hand flew and knocked on their elbows. A few cries of pain came from their mouths. Yiqing Luo stuck close to them closely as her arm lifted up slightly and mercilessly slammed against their elbows. Ah! The 4 ladies' faces turned pale in pain and cold sweat oozed out of their foreheads. One by one, they shrank back and couldn't even lift their hands. How would they dare to continue fighting with Yiqing Luo? You dare to hit us in the academy. I will tell the instructor. Shangguan Liuli trembled in fear. Yiqing Luo curled her lips and turned to look at Lu Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu, did I hit anyone? Lu Xiaoyu shook her head cooperatively and blinked innocently with a wronged look. Did Qing Luo hit anyone? Why didn't I see it? Isn't it because 5th Miss Shangguan is jealous that we pass the training, so she occupies 3 rooms and wants to drive us out of the dormitory? Yiqing Luo nodded her head with a smile as her vision turned towards the 4 young ladies. Did I hit you? The 4 women opened their mouths, but no words came out. Shangguan Liuli was so infuriated that her face flushed red as she clutched her chest with one hand and pointed at Yiqing Luo with the other. You dare to deny it! The wounds on our bodies are the best proof. Weren't those injuries caused by you sisters accidentally sparring with one another? The smile on Yiqing Luo's face became increasingly sweet and harmless. What's more, the one who used profound qi to attack me was you. 5th Miss Shangguan. Shangguan Liuli didn't understand what he meant, but the women around her were all smart people, and they immediately understood. The reason why Yiqing Luo had not released any profound qi from the start till the end. Their profound ranks were all recorded on the wooden tablet. The wooden token could also sense the fluctuation of the xian qi they used. If this matter were to be reported to the instructor, the wooden sign would show that it was indeed them who did it. Damn it! Yi Qing Luo was simply too black-bellied. She made them suffer, and they had to swallow it down. Huh, don't tell me. You think what I said is wrong. Yi Qing Luo smiled again, but her eyes became especially cold and severe. Chapter 184. You all. Shangguan Liuli's face was gloomy. She had not expected these sisters, who were like biological sisters, to actually side with Yi Qing Luo at this moment. A wise man submits to circumstances. If Fifth Miss Shangguan wants to tell the instructor about today's matter, I will naturally not haggle with you all if you all tell the instructor what you have seen. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled slightly. Her charming eyes were filled with a devilish glint, covered with a layer of chilliness. Those few ladies hurriedly nodded their heads. They had never used their true feelings towards Shangguan Liuli. They had been fawning on her because of her identity. They had no intention to put themselves in danger because of Shangguan Liuli. Every man for himself will be destroyed by heaven and earth. What's more, Shangguan Liuli had tricked them to offend Yi Qing Luo, but she had never mentioned that although Yi Qing Luo was in the yellow profound 9th grade, but her ability was so powerful. And in the end, when Shangguan Liuli asked them to go up, she hid behind them. Seeing the four ladies being so obedient, Yi Qing Luo nodded her head in satisfaction. Now, put my things and Xiao Yu's things back in the room properly. Put them back in the same place as they were before. Shangguan Liuli was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. This hurried breathing made her chest that was thrown out by Yi Qing Luo even more painful. The cold sweat on her forehead rolled down one by one, as she fell onto the ground powerlessly. But those four ladies didn't even bother to look at Shangguan Liuli. One by one, they obediently picked up the things which were originally piled up in the corner, preparing to humiliate Yi Qing Luo. These rich young ladies had never done any hard work at home. To make them tidy up the room, it was like a war. Shangguan Liuli's things were thrown out one by one, whereas Yi Qing Luo led Lu Xiaoyu to sit leisurely on the chair, chatting. Aren't you afraid that these people will really complain to the instructor? Lu Xiaoyu was curious how Yi Qing Luo could be so confident. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled. Without evidence, they wouldn't dare. Otherwise, they would be seeking their own death. She pursued the principle of keeping a low profile, but it didn't mean that she would allow herself to be trampled on. She had only been in the academy for 2 days, but Shangguan Liuli had been looking for trouble with her. If she didn't intimidate Shangguan Liuli and the others now, she would have a hard time in the future. It would be better to solve it now. At least for a period of time in the future, she would be able to enjoy peace. Today was really satisfying. I passed the training, got the limelight, and even ate 2 big roast chickens. Now that I've seen such a good show, I have no regrets in life. Lu Xiaoyu hooked her arms around Yi Qing Luo's neck and smiled with her eyes curved. Yi Qing Luo stroked her head and glanced sideways at Shangguan Liuli, who was half kneeling on the ground with a face full of hatred, as a cold smile surfaced in her eyes. Life was the same. One had to be clear about who to be a good person in front of and who to be a bad person in front of. Approximately half an hour later, the 4 ladies had rearranged Yi Qing Luo and Lu Xiaoyu's room neatly. Some of the things that they had broken before, they did not hesitate to go to their dormitory and replace them with their own things. Both of their rooms had been tidied up cleanly. On the contrary, the whole hall was in a mess, and Shangguan Liuli's things were piled up everywhere. After the few of them tidied themselves up, they wiped off the sweat on their foreheads and stood in front of Yi Qing Luo. Chapter 185. The 4 ladies nodded their heads obediently. After getting Yi Qing Luo's permission, they left the dormitory one by one. No one was willing to stay here for a while longer. Looking at these people, from the initial arrogant sneer to the current servility, Yi Qing Luo sighed deeply in her heart. This was indeed a strange world where the strong were respected. If the one standing here today was another person, there was a high possibility that he would be tamed by Shangguan Luli. But now, the ones who ran away with their tails between their legs were Shangguan, Luli, and the rest. Because she was strong enough. Enough to contend against Shangguan, Luli, and the rest. The bigger the fist was the hard truth. She had to become stronger in order to survive in this strange world for a longer period of time. Qing Luo, then what about her? Lu Xiaoyu pointed at Shangguan, Lu Li, who was still kneeling on the ground. Let her. Yi Qing Luo glanced at her indifferently and shifted her gaze away. You must be exhausted today. Go back to your room and rest. I will call you at night. Lu Xiaoyu didn't reject. After running 5 rounds, even if she ate the roast chicken and was fully rejuvenated, the physical fatigue was still there. After the both of them returned to their room, Shangguan Lu Li, who was sitting stiffly on the ground, blinked her eyes. After some time, she regained her senses. The whole room was in a mess, piled up with her things. Shangguan Lu Li's breathing became hurried again. Covering her chest, there was a burst of pain followed by a wave. She twisted her head, looking at Yi Qing Luo's tightly shut door. As she looked, her hands clenched into fists. Blue veins popped out. Her eyes were fierce and filled with murderous intent. Absolutely. Would not let Yi Qing Luo off so easily. Absolutely not. Perhaps it was the physical fatigue, or perhaps it was in her sleep. She always felt a faintly discernible sandalwood scent lingering around her nose. Yi Qing Luo's sleep was incomparably sweet. The moment she slept, it was already 7 p.m. It was Chi-Chi who used its tail to rub against Yi Qing Luo's face, scratching her awake. Yi Qing Luo opened her eyes, meeting with Chi-Chi's pair of pitch-black tiger eyes. She was slightly stunned and suddenly remembered the smell she smelled in her dream. She quickly carried Chi-Chi and sat up straight. He looked around but didn't see the person he was thinking of. He took a deep sniff of the air, but the elegant sandalwood scent was nowhere to be found. There was no sign of him. She remembered that in her dream, there seemed to be a pair of warm palms gently covering her face. His slender fingers brushed aside the bangs on her forehead. His warm lips pressed against her forehead. Yi Qing Luo could even remember clearly that when he kissed her, the scent that seeped into her nose and the warmth of his chest. But was all of this really just a dream? Yi Qing Luo's eyelids drooped down slightly as her hand subconsciously caressed Chi-Chi's forehead. If she were to look at the copper mirror, she would discover that her current expression showed how disappointed she was. Qing Luo, I'm coming in. Outside the door, a rhythmic knocking sound was heard, followed by Lu Xiaoyu's clear and bright voice. Yi Qing Luo's body shook violently as she quivered and regained her consciousness. She covered her cheeks with her hands, which were burning hot. She bit her pink lips tightly. She was extremely unfamiliar with her own reaction and felt ashamed. She actually dreamt of Diamo Xian. After waking up, she still wanted to see him? She must be crazy. It must be Diamo Xian who had cast a curse on the profound jade heart in her body. Yi Qing Luo patted her face, trying hard to lower her temperature. Chapter 186. This girl was really stubborn when it came to food. Yi Qing Luo smiled helplessly. All right, I'll be right there. Why is your face so red? Are you sick? Lu Xiaoyu's sharp eyes saw Yi Qing Luo's red cheeks and immediately strode into the room. She stretched out her hand to grab Yi Qing Luo's wrist in an attempt to feel her pulse. Yi Qing Luo had already pulled her hand away and patted it lightly. I just woke up. It's just a little warm. Let me freshen up. Oh, Lu Xiaoyu did not suspect anything. She stood at the side and teased Chi-Chi. After Yi Qing Luo finished grooming, the temperature on her face had also dropped. The two of them walked out of the room together. The hall was still in a mess. Shangguan Liuli's things were scattered all over the floor, and Mo Ingyu, who had disappeared all this time, was sitting on a soft chair, shaking her legs. Hearing the sound of the door, Mo Inue turned her head. Under the slightly curled long hair, the pair of empty and soulless eyes locked onto Yi Qing Luo. You must be my new roommate. My name is Lu Xiaoyu. Please take care of me in the future. It was Lu Xiaoyu's first time meeting Mo Inue. Mo Inue's Lolita attire made his face flush with cuteness. She walked up excitedly and extended her hand to Mo Inue. But Mo Inue's line of sight didn't move as she quietly stared at Yi Qing Luo. She tilted her head and said word by word, "You are in trouble." Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. "What do you mean?" Mo Inue turned her head, raised her hand, and pointed outside the dormitory. "See for yourself." I'll go. Lu Xiaoyu withdrew her hand awkwardly because of Mo Inue's disregard. As soon as she heard the topic, she volunteered in order to ease the tense atmosphere. Lu Xiaoyu opened the door to the dormitory and wanted to see if there was a group of people waiting to take revenge for Shangguan Liuli. But just as he opened the door, a white piece of rice paper floated down. She caught the piece of paper, and her eyes were fixed on the Xian paper. Her brows immediately furrowed. What the hell is the Faculty Council? On what basis should I issue a challenge to Qing Luo? Letter of challenge? Interesting. She had just entered the academy and already received a letter of challenge. She really couldn't keep a low profile, even if she wanted to. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows and took the Xian paper from Lu Xiaoyu's hands with interest. The words were written in flamboyant calligraphy. The general meaning of these few hundred words was: as a new student, Yi Qing Luo was always in the limelight, and her behavior was too unreasonable. Therefore, the Faculty Council decided to observe Yi Qing Luo for half a month. The Faculty Council would immediately expel Yi Qing Luo out of the Heavenly Academy if they were to find any excessive behavior. The Faculty Council is equivalent to the Academy's second-in-command, a clubhouse established by the students. All of the students' questions are first submitted to the Faculty Council, and then the president of the Faculty Council will report to the teacher or the dean. Mo Inue's voice was flat, sweet, and emotionless. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, her heart understood. The Faculty Council here was probably the student council of her time. After reading this letter of challenge, Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched. What was wrong with this world? She had passed the training, but became the limelight, and this was unreasonable? Could it be that all the new students had to give up the training midway, and this was considered as obedient? And to carry out half a month of observation. Damn it, was the Faculty Council sick? Chapter 187. Mo Inue tilted her head and said in a serious tone, "So you are in trouble." Harassment? Yi Qing Luo curled her lips disapprovingly. If the Faculty Council wants to harass me, just send someone over. She wanted to see if this so-called Faculty Council really thought of themselves as the overlord of the students in the academy. Don't look down on the Faculty Council. Mo Inue's lips twitched slightly, revealing a strange smile. The president of the Faculty Council is a student of the class of gods. No matter how capable you are, you can't do anything to the students of the class of gods. That little girl stood up slowly. The bell on her wrist made a melodious sound. The Faculty Council is targeting you. Perhaps it is the intention of the Shangguan family, or perhaps it is because your existence threatens their position. She walked towards her room. Her pace was steady and her voice indifferent, being targeted by the Faculty Council. I'm afraid your days are not going to be easy. With that, the door to the room closed, and the beautiful pink figure disappeared before their eyes. Lu Xiaoyu held Yi Qing Luo's arm, her eyes filled with worry. Class of gods! Qing Luo, what should we do? The people from the class of gods are not as easy to deal with as Shangguan Liuli. Just as Mo Inue said, the Faculty Council was targeting Yi Qing Luo. It was inevitable that other students would stay away from her. Moreover, those who were unhappy with Yi Qing Luo would also take the opportunity to attack her. It could be said that the faculty council's public announcement to Yi-Ching Luo could totally destroy a freshman. Yi-Ching Luo chuckled. She was indeed a freshman, but she was Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo would not be destroyed so easily. The faculty council is not the supreme existence. Above them, there are still the teachers' group and the director. As long as I am still a student, they will not dare to do anything to me. The faculty council could use various means to force her to leave the Heavenly Academy. Unless the faculty council had the absolute ability to make her disappear from the Heavenly Academy silently. Otherwise, as long as she was still in the school, they would not dare to do anything. But the secret means of the faculty council, absolutely. Lu Xiaoyu pursed her lips. Her hand couldn't help but hold Yi-Ching Luo's arm tightly. Seeing her frightened look, Yi-Ching Luo curled her lips and touched her head. If anything happens to me, Master Gui will not stand by idly. Lu Xiaoyu was startled, and a smile finally appeared on her face. That's right, how could I forget? Yi-Ching Luo was someone whom Master Guiyu had specially picked to protect. Moreover, it was said that Yi-Ching Luo was the disciple of the Overlord and had a close relationship with the Overlord. Seeing Lu Xiaoyu smile, Yi-Ching Luo rubbed her head and walked out of the dormitory. Let's go eat something first. Lu Xiaoyu did notice that when Yi-Ching Luo shifted her line of sight, her slender brows creased slightly and her charming eyes squinted slightly, revealing traces of biting cold intent. Let's go out and have a look. Let's see, what is this so-called faculty council? Both of them had just woken up and were taking a stroll around the academy garden. Along the way, all of the students, regardless of whether they were freshmen or seniors, looked shocked when they saw her. They pointed at her and said something to the people around them. Momentarily, Yi-Ching Luo's low-profile life had once again attracted the attention of others. Basically, the entire academy had heard of her name. It was destined that she would not be able to keep a low profile. Those students, one by one, began to discuss about what they had heard about Yi-Ching Luo. It could be said that everyone was no stranger to this name. Chapter 188. This new student who had just transferred here was the once infamous 7th young mistress. As for why this waste 7th missy could cultivate and become so powerful, everyone attributed it to the Overlord. Because with the Overlord, any miracles were a matter of course. After the profound heart jade was restored, this freshman tried to kill her 4th sister during the ability assessment, exposing her using the Dark Forces item. Then, with Old Man Guiyu's escort and the Overlord's personal appearance to express his support, it was a tacit acknowledgement of their master-disciple relationship. Following that, on the first day of school, she formed an enmity with one of the 4 great families, the Shengguan family. After that, she was targeted by the faculty council. In the entire school, who didn't know of Yi-Ching Luo's name? Ching Luo. Don't you feel that their eyes are very disgusting? Lu Xiaoyu held Yi-Ching Luo's arm tightly. Her face was extremely ugly. She always felt like an animal being surrounded by people. The two of them had just walked out of the garden and were about to head to the canteen when a group of people walked towards them. The two of them were led by 2 decent-looking beauties, dressed in green and white uniforms. The two of them stretched out their hands and were clustered around 7 to 8 male students. From the badge on their chest, it could be seen that these 7 to 8 people were students from the High Profound class. The High Profound class was the legendary place of the Heavenly Academy. All the students were trying their best to enter the High Profound class. Therefore, when the 7 to 8 students from the High Profound class appeared together, the entire garden was boiling. Everyone looked at them with admiration, just short of rushing up and begging for a handshake and signature. Yi-Ching Luo. One of the beauties smiled slightly. Can you come with us? We have something to discuss with you. Yi-Ching Luo raised her brows slightly, sizing up the group of people in front of her with interest. She was very clear that if she didn't go, these few people would use forceful means to force her to go over. To be able to mobilize the students from the high profound class to personally invite her, other than the faculty council. No one else had this ability. Yi Qing Luo snorted lightly, revealing a hint of ridicule between her brows. The faculty council really gave her face. You all. Why are you looking for Qing Luo? She is a student of the academy. You have no right to bring her anywhere. Lu Xiaoyu saw that the situation was not right and immediately stood in front of Yi Qing Luo. Junior, don't be afraid. I just heard that one of the freshmen ran 5 laps and even got the approval of the 2 cold-faced instructors, Instructor Chu and Instructor He. I want to talk to her. The beauty smiled elegantly, but her smile did not reach her eyes. The other beauty casually stepped forward, so casually that Lu Xiaoyu didn't even have the slightest reaction before she was pushed away by the 2 beauties. The beauties stood on the left and right, sandwiching Yi Qing Luo in the middle. You guys are bullying a freshman. I'm going to tell the instructor. Lu Xiaoyu was pushed away and struggled to rush forward. Xiaoyu, it's fine. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and looked at Lu Xiaoyu as she shook her head. Go to the cafeteria to have your meal first. I'll chat with the senior sisters and come over in a while. These 2 beauties did not come with good intentions. The high profound class was indeed the high profound class. Just by standing beside her, Yi Qing Luo could feel a wave of pressure. Lu Xiaoyu was obviously frightened by such a scene. She could not drag Lu Xiaoyu into this. Qing Luo, they are obviously. You don't have to worry about it. Yi Qing Luo smiled. Chapter 189. Lu Xiaoyu stamped her feet anxiously. Her face was full of anxiety. She twisted her fingers, watching Yi Qing Luo and the others gradually getting further and further away. She clenched her fist and turned to run in the other direction. Yi Qing Luo was sandwiched in the middle. The 2 beauties seemed to be intimate, but in fact, both of their palms were stuck on Yi Qing Luo's back. It seemed that as long as she had the slightest resistance, they would mercilessly strike her with their palms. The group of people didn't know how long, stopped in a luxurious courtyard. To be able to build a personal, independent courtyard in the academy, this place was definitely not an ordinary place. Sure enough, Yi Qing Luo saw a few big words written in flamboyant calligraphy. Faculty Council. Yi Qing Luo sneered. Her guess was right. These people were from the Faculty Council. The 7 high profound class male students who followed behind stopped at the entrance of the Faculty Council. After the 2 beauties brought Yi Qing Luo into the Faculty Council, there were occasionally a few people from the Faculty Council passing by. When everyone saw these 2 beauties, they respectfully greeted, Vice President, 4th Miss Lu. It could be seen how high the status of these 2 beauties in the Faculty Council. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes slightly. Should she feel proud? The dignified vice president personally went to pick her up? The 2 beauties led Yi Qing Luo and walked around the Faculty Council several times, probably to make Yi Qing Luo confused and unable to remember the way. However, they did not expect that Yi Qing Luo had the ability to remember everything she saw. Suddenly, the vice president stopped in her tracks and looked coldly at somewhere behind her. Someone is following us. 4th Miss Lu's expression changed. She didn't expect someone to follow them for so long without a sound. Second sister, can you sense who it is? The vice president's face sank. Her 5 fingers suddenly pinched Yi Qing Luo's face. Sure is not an ordinary waist. There is such a powerful guard beside you. Guard. Yi Qing Luo suddenly understood. It was probably Wind who was arranged by DMO Xian to protect her. She re-evaluated the vice president's strength in her heart. Her perceptive ability had exceeded the average person by many times, but she still couldn't sense the existence of Wind. This vice president actually discovered Wind's existence. Avoid it. The vice president quickly made a judgment, lifted Yi Qing Luo up by the waist, and slammed her against the wall. As for fourth young Miss Liu, she leaped up and flew in the direction indicated by the vice president. Yi Qing Luo originally thought that she would be treated as a meat patty and knocked against the wall. However, the moment her body touched the wall, she was sucked in by a suction force. There was a secret passage in the wall. Yi Qing Luo was carried and swayed all the way, until a ray of light appeared in front of her. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes. Inside the secret passage, there were actually 7 or 8 vertical secret passages. Every secret passage was guarded by guards dressed in black. The vice president took the middle corridor. After walking for a while, he arrived at a room at the end. Just as she pushed the door open, Yi Qing Luo saw Shangguan Liuli sitting by the side, beaming with delight. "President, I've already invited student Yi over." The vice president put down Yi Qing Luo, and his voice turned gentle. The room was very simple. There were 2 bookshelves, a wooden table, and a few wooden chairs. And in front of the wooden table, the person who was reading the official documents raised his head slightly when he heard the voice. That was an extremely delicate and elegant young man. He was dressed in a green and white uniform, with a green belt tied around his waist. His hair was fixed by a jade crown inlaid with jade beads. That pair of eyes seemed to be plated with a layer of moisture, as if it could immerse people in his gentleness, unable to extricate themselves. Chapter 190. You are student Yi Qing Luo. The man put down the brush in his hand and spoke calmly. His voice, like his appearance, was as gentle as water. He was such an elegant and handsome man. Even his smile was like a spring breeze, which made one's heart feel as if it was lingering in spring water. But Yi Qing Luo's cells at this moment tensed up. This man was definitely not what he looked like on the surface. His body exuded an extremely strong evil aura. It was a vicious aura that could not be concealed no matter how he put on a gentle mask. Yi Qing Luo frowned. Her heart raised some vigilance. "What do you want to talk about?" The man slightly hooked his lips, smiling elegantly. "Student, you don't be nervous. Relax. Today I invited you to the faculty council. There is no malicious intention. Just received a report from student Shangguan. So I specially look for student Yi to verify the situation." Invitation. The moment he came up, one on the left and one on the right, this was called an invitation? Yi Qing Luo snorted coldly, glancing at Shangguan Luli. She secretly thought, how did Shangguan Luli get involved with the faculty council? Her vision turned and saw Shangguan Fang standing in the corner, with a somewhat complacent smile on his lips. She immediately understood the reason. Shangguan Fang was a high, profound class student. Naturally, he had contact with the vice president. Shangguan Fang was a senior student in the academy for a few years, so his relationship with the faculty council was absolutely not bad. It turned out that Shangguan Fang wanted to stand up for his sister. Yi Qing Luo frowned, slowly rubbed her wrist. "This is the way the president invites students. I have learned something." "Don't be so shameless." The vice president's face sunk, raised his hand, and swung it towards Yi Qing Luo's face. Yi Qing Luo still remembered that the vice president had pinched her jaw. This action, other than DMO Xian, no one else could tolerate it, who stipulated that in the faculty council in other people's territory she had to be restrained. There was no way for her to obediently take a beating. Seeing that the vice president's hand was about to fall on Yi Qing Luo's face, Yi Qing Luo's figure suddenly flashed, raised her hand, and was about to counterattack. Suddenly he felt a cold wind blowing in front of him. It was filled with a murderous aura. Yi Qing Luo was shocked, somersaulted into the air, avoiding that profound qi. She lifted her eyes and looked in the president's direction. He retracted his sleeves, a gentle smile on his face. Let's talk things out. Don't fight. Yes, President." The vice president's cheeks were slightly red. She obediently withdrew her hand and walked to the president's side. "I am the president of the faculty council, Si Yanmu. Yuer's way of doing things is indeed a little too extreme. but this is also for the sake of harmony in the academy. Si Yanmu's lips curled up into a smile, and his fair palm rested on the wooden table. When that pair of warm eyes met with Yi Qingluo only felt a burst of coldness attacking her entire body. She couldn't help but tremble. According to Student Shangguan's report, after Student Shangguan entered the dormitory, you wanted to drive her out of the dormitory, and after the assessment, you threw her things in the hall and did not allow her to sleep in the room. Is this true? When Si Yanmu finished asking these questions, Shangguan Luli, who was sitting by the side, covered her face and sobbed. President, you are the god in the hearts of the students. The instructor likes Yi 7th Miss and will not listen to Lu Li's words. Lu Li can only seek help from you. You must help Lu Li. Chapter 191. The existence of the Faculty Council is to provide students with a harmonious learning environment. Si Yanmu smiled brightly and slowly got up. That green and white uniform made his figure look slender and straight. The same academy uniform had a completely different effect on different people. Shangguan Fengyi was already considered as a handsome and elegant young master, but Si Yanmu stood beside him. In an instant, Shangguan Fengyi's brilliance was overshadowed. Si Yanmu slowly walked in front of Yi Qingluo and stood still. Squinting his eyes as if sizing up goods, he scanned Yi Qingluo from head to toe. The freshman Yi Qingluo. The power released by a yellow, profound, 9th grade cultivator was far beyond that of a yellow, profound cultivator. Lu Shuiyu could be by his side as his vice president. Her strength was naturally not to be underestimated. But just now, Yi Qingluo actually avoided Lu Shuiyu's slap and hit back instead. If it wasn't for him, this slap would have landed on Lu Shuiyu's face. Si Yanmu's eyes flickered slightly. No wonder the one above pointed out to him to pay attention to Yi Qingluo. The existence of such an uncontrollable person was indeed a threat. Have you seen enough? Yi Qingluo hated this kind of scrutinizing gaze, as if she had been peeled off completely and seen into the depths of her heart. This feeling of being peeped at was very uncomfortable. No, Student Yi is a rare beauty. How could I have seen enough? Si Yanmu smiled warmly. These words, no matter how one listened, had a hint of ridicule. But when it came out from Si Yanmu's mouth, it seemed so reasonable. This kind of gentle and refined appearance was indeed a sharp weapon for killing. And after Si Yanmu finished a sentence, Lu Shuiyu, who was standing by the wooden table, her face suddenly turned extremely ugly. A pair of fierce eyes stared jealously at Yi Qingluo. Cut the crap the Faculty Council can develop to this stage today. Presumably the president is also a reasonable person. Who is right and who is wrong, the president should know better than anyone else. Yi Qingluo sneered. She didn't care about Si Yanmu deliberately aroused Lu Shuiyu's hostility towards her. Anyway, whether Si Yanmu did this or not, Lu Shuiyu had already regarded her as an enemy. Arrogant indeed. Si Yanmu narrowed his eyes. Student Yi, don't you know that it is not good for you to be so arrogant in someone else's territory? I haven't done anything more arrogant yet. Yi Qingluo's pink lips curved upwards as a smile bloomed on her lips. That smile was peerless and magnificent, especially that pair of bewitching eyes, which curved into a long and enchanting arc, made people even more intoxicated by her smile. Even Si Yanmu was slightly stunned by this smile, and it was precisely because of this daze which gave Yi Qingluo an opportunity to take advantage of. She spread her fingers, and the glowing flame fan appeared on her fingertips. Without any fancy moves, Yi Qingluo leaned close to Si Yanmu, lifted her elbow, and with a twist of her body, the feather fan was already on Si Yanmu's neck. A sharp knife was hidden in the feather fan. A slight movement, and Si Yanmu's arteries would be cut. Yi Qingluo's action was so fast that no one could react. No matter how fast Si Yanmu's reaction was, he didn't expect Yi Qingluo to be so daring and arrogant. Yi Qingluo, How dare you hold the president hostage? Do you not want to mingle in the academy anymore? Lu Shuiyu's face was ferocious, gritting her teeth and pointing at Yi Qing Luo. Chapter 192. The faculty council is clearer than anyone else about the matters in the academy, and the president coerced me to come here. It is nothing more than to fight for the Shangguan family's reputation. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows slightly. Her eyes were filled with contempt. If I hold you hostage, I will die. If I don't, I will still die. Since that's the case, why don't I drag you down with me? The few of them couldn't refute what she said. On the contrary, Xian Mu, whose artery was pressed by the feather fan, looked as indifferent as ever. But deep in his heart, he was somewhat interested in Yi Qing Luo. Since student Yi is a straightforward person, I shall not say any more nonsense. Xian Mu raised his head slightly. The sharp blade on the handle of the fan instantly cut his skin. A drop of blood slid down along the feather fan. Xian Mu frowned in pain. You think I don't dare to make a move? Yi Qing Luo's feather fan rotated and switched to the other side of Xian Mu's neck. The cold fan handle floated around his neck slightly. She snorted lightly. Her eyes overflowed with some seductive light. Her voice was suppressed, revealing a very charming voice. I'm a madman. Once I am unhappy, my hand will shake, and this shake, the knife, will not have eyes. Let's make a bet. See if I kill you first, then easily escape from the faculty council. Or I kill you, then your people catch me. When these words came out, the few people around were so angry that they almost vomited blood. Damn, this was too arrogant. Kill at the slightest disagreement, even daring to kill the president of the faculty council. Lu Shuiyu and the rest absolutely believed that Yi Qing Luo was serious in what she said. Bet or not? Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up slightly, smiling charmingly. But this time, this smile in the eyes of the crowd, there was no ripple like before. Instead, they felt that this smile came from hell. A freshman actually had such a powerful aura and oppressive force. Even if they had experienced hundreds of battles, they were also terrified. If such a freshman was allowed to grow, how terrifying would he be in the future? Especially, this freshman would definitely be an enemy in the future. Xian Mu's expression was calm. He looked down and met with Yi Qing Luo's enchanting eyes. As their eyes met, Xian Mu revealed a very shallow smile. Just like his usual gentle smile, it made people feel warm. His watery eyes seemed to be able to dispel all the coldness. Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk as her fingers tightened. Sure enough, the next moment, Xian Mu's figure fell backwards, his hands raised upwards and turned into a palm wind, gently patting towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. That palm strike was extremely strange. As he moved, it was impossible to determine the direction of his palm. Yi Qing Luo had already made preparations the moment she saw that strange smile on his face. The minute he moved, Yi Qing Luo followed closely. She agilely dodged his palm strike, and the feather fan at the tip of her fingers still stuck close to his neck. When Xian Mu's palm wind became swift and fierce, aiming at Yi Qing Luo's movement, he struck down with his palm. Yi Qing Luo flipped over and went behind Xian Mu. She lifted her leg and gave his ass a kick. Xian Mu staggered a few steps and half knelt on the ground, almost falling flat on his face. Since young, Xian Mu had always been a proud son of heaven, growing up in the envy and support of everyone. His amazing talent and ability to cultivate profound qi, it was destined that he had never been bullied by anyone. Xian Mu wiped the bloodstains on his neck. His gaze gradually turned cold. Unexpectedly, the first person to injure him was a yellow, profound 9th-grade freshman. His self-esteem had suffered a serious blow. Chapter 193. A murderous look flashed across Xian Mu's eyes. He wanted to kill Yi Qing Luo, kill this freshman who made him lose face. Yen Mu clenched his fists and profound qi burst out of his body. An oppressive pressure that made one's heart sink instantly pressed down on them. Shangguan Lili, who was at the lower profound grade, could not withstand such pressure, and a mouthful of blood spurted out from her throat. Even Shangguan Fengyi's face had turned a little pale, not to mention Yiqing Luo, who was only at the yellow profound grade. No matter how strong her potential was, with the protection of the divine weapon and the sacred beast, but the profound grade was still there. When Yen Mu's pressure swept over, Yiqing Luo suddenly felt that there was a huge stone in her chest, pressing hard on her heart. Sinking bit by bit, her throat was filled with a fishy sweetness. She took a deep breath. Her charming eyes suddenly became piercingly cold, and with a leap, she headed towards the direction of Yen Mu. The feather fan unfolded, rolled up a wave of air, lingering around her. Although this wave of air could not help Yiqing Luo to resist the pressure released by Yen Mu, but it could more or less resist some of the pressure. Student Yi, don't be too arrogant. Let me teach you the principle of there is always someone better than you. Yen Mu still had this smile on his face, but between his eyes there were two rays of piercingly cold light. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes, unable to see through Yen Mu's profound jade heart, but from the pressure of the profound grade, she could feel it. Yen Mu was definitely a profound cultivator of the Earth Profound grade. Earth Profound! No wonder he was the president of the faculty council. His strength was so strong. If she had known earlier, she should not have kicked his, but she should have directly kicked his front. Yiqing Luo held her breath, watching Yen Mu's movements with vigilance, ready to cast the teleportation secret technique at any time. Originally, she did not intend to reveal her trump card too early. After all, before her strength matured, if she revealed her trump card, wouldn't the enemy be prepared to guard against her? Hiding her own unique skill was to give herself another way to save her life. But now, Yiqing Luo had no other choice. Yen Mu looked at Yiqing Luo with a sneer, hoping to see panic and fear on her face, begging for mercy. However, he was disappointed. There was no expression on Yiqing Luo's face, only a pair of narrow long eyes, staring sharply at him. Yen Mu's eyes turned cold. How dare she look down on him? His 5 fingers suddenly spread open, and a stream of profound energy condensed in his palm. Immediately, an even more powerful aura filled the room and merged with the air. Waves of air began to distort in the air, forming layers of ripples. This power was so strong that it was suffocating. Yiqing Luo moved her feet and was about to cast her teleportation and follow the path in her memory to escape from the faculty council. Suddenly, the president's room's door was kicked open and a white figure, like lightning, speedily dashed in front of Yiqing Luo. Yen Mu, do you not want to be the president anymore? How dare you touch the person I want to protect? Old man Guiyu's face was gloomy and his eyes were sharp as he stared coldly at Yen Mu. He raised one hand and easily suppressed the profound qi released by Yen Mu. Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned. The white robe hanging loosely on the frail little body in front of her seemed to be hanging on his body. Usually he was crazy and didn't care about anything. But at this moment he stood in front of her without hesitation to protect and defend her. Chapter 194. Master Guiyu? Yen Mu was shocked. His attack was easily intercepted by old man Guiyu. Yen Mu had been in the Heavenly Academy for such a long time and was the president of the faculty council. Nothing in the academy could escape his eyes. But only Guiyu, he could not figure it out. Guiyu's position in the academy was extremely strange. He did not teach any classes and did not make any contribution to the Heavenly Academy. All he did was drink and wander around the academy. But all the teachers kept a respectful distance from old man Guiyu. Even if they met, the masters would lower their statuses and be gentle towards old man Guiyu. In the 6 years in the academy, Mu had never seen Goeyu in action. He did not know how strong Goeyu's profound level and ability were. This time, he finally experienced it personally. Did you ask for my permission before bringing the person I want to protect to the faculty council? Goeyu grabbed Yenmu's collar and slapped him on the face. He did not give Yenmu any face. President! Lu Shuiyu was scared and ran over quickly, trying to stop Goeyu. But how could her speed be faster than Goeyu? Only to hear a clear and crisp slap. Yenmu's face had an additional scarlet palm print. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Yenmu's mouth and splashed on Lu Shuiyu's face. Not sure if it was because Yenmu was shocked by the first slap in his life, or because he was scared by the blood on his face. Lu Shuiyu stood rooted to the ground with a face full of blood. Goeyu released Yenmu's collar. As soon as the 5 fingers loosened, Yenmu's body was flung into the air, rolled a few times in the air, and fell heavily on Shangguan Lili. Goeyu's strength was strong. Yenmu's impact pressed Shangguan Lili and Shangguan Fengyi on his body, and the 3 of them rolled into a ball. A few screams were heard, and Lu Shuiyu suddenly regained her senses. She wiped the blood on her face with one hand and said, Master Goeyu, the president invited Student Yi over to verify some information. This is also to ensure the harmony of the students. I, your father's men, have the final say in whether they are harmonious or not. Old man Goeyu spat and scratched his messy hair. I only know that if anyone dares to touch the person I'm protecting, I'll cripple him first. Lu Shuiyu was speechless. It was impossible to reason with old man Goeyu. In old man Goeyu's eyes, no matter how big the world was, it couldn't be bigger than his wishes. It couldn't beat his likes. He was the law. Lu Shuiyu suppressed the dissatisfaction in her heart. Her cold eyes swept to the side and fixed on the moment when Yenmu was pressing down on Shangguan Lili's body. Her eyes suddenly became cold. She snorted and walked quickly toward Yenmu's direction. That damned Shangguan Lili. She actually took the opportunity to seduce the president. Old man Goeyu turned around and looked at Yiqing Luo from head to toe to make sure that she was not hurt at all, and heaved a sigh of relief. You lass, you clearly know that the other party has bad intentions, but you still obediently follow them. I say you're smart, but you're as dumb as a pig at the critical moment. If it wasn't for your roommate who found me, you wouldn't be able to walk out of this faculty council today. Yiqing Luo smiled and took the initiative to hold old man Goeyu's arm. Yes, yes, yes. Thanks to Master Goeyu's timely arrival. Old man Goeyu got the praise and raised his head proudly. He snorted and said, Look for me if there's anything. I'll help you solve it any time. This look was exactly like an old urchin. Yiqing Luo looked towards the direction of Yenmu. Lu Shuiyu had lifted him up with one hand and pushed Shangguan Lili hard. Chapter 195. Shangguan Lili was implicated even though she was lying down. With such a heavy pressure from Yenmu, his internal organs were almost squeezed out. Before she could get up, she was slapped down by Lu Shuiyu again. Shangguan Lili wanted to cry, but had no tears, lying on the ground with no energy to get up. Yiqing Luo laughed softly. Master Goeyu, you are quite good at diverting the trouble. Anyone could tell that Lu Shuiyu was in love with Yenmu to the point of being sick. Just like before, Yenmu merely praised her, and Lu Shuiyu couldn't wait to kill her with her eyes. What's more, old man Goeyu directly threw Yenmu onto Shangguan Lili. Skin-to-skin contact. Yenmu was still on top of Shangguan Lili. Lu Shuiyu hated Shangguan Lili to the core. Shangguan Lili probably never dreamed that she would ask her brother to seek revenge from the president of the faculty council. Not only did she not seek revenge, she had also made a powerful enemy in the academy. What diverting trouble! I just casually threw you away. Old man Goeyu's sharp eyes glanced at Shangguan Lili, who was lying on the ground, crying out in pain with a disdainful look. Well, She had overestimated old man Guiyu. Lu Shui, you wanted to help Si Yanmu back to the wooden chair, but Si Yanmu waved his hand and stopped her. Si Yanmu held Lu Shui's wrist tightly, and with her strength, he slowly walked to the front of old man Guiyu. Master Guiyu, I have been busy with the Academy's affairs these days and do not know much about the outside world, and did not know that Student E is your student. Si Yanmu said word by word. While he was speaking, his lips moved and the muscles on his face were twitching, causing a burst of pain. Si Yanmu was filled with anger and his pride was being trampled on, but he still had to be polite. Today, 3rd young Master Shangguan mentioned that 5th Miss Shangguan was bullied in the dormitory and suffered from bullying in the academy. As the president of the faculty council, my responsibility is to maintain the peace of the academy, so I invited Student E over to verify the situation. This blame was directly thrown to Shangguan Fangyi. Shangguan Fangyi was angry, but he didn't dare to say anything. He covered his painful abdomen, grimaced in pain, and didn't dare to say anything. If I knew that Student E was your student, I definitely wouldn't dare to act rashly. Teacher, please forgive me for causing this misunderstanding. In the Heavenly Academy, the status of the masters was higher than the students. He had always believed in the principle of respecting one's teacher. Because of this, no matter how strong the students were, even if they were from the high profound class, they would still have to greet a teacher with a horizontal bar, especially when they were up against the temperamental and mysterious Guiyu. Si Yanmu was able to become the president of the faculty council, so naturally he was not a fool. A wise man submits to circumstances. When it's time to be a coward, one should be a coward. Old man Guiyu sneered. If you don't know how to be the president, then let my Luo last take over. His words stirred up tens of thousands of waves. The entire room fell into a deathly silence. Yi Qing Luo was also shocked. Give the president to her? Are you sure you're not joking? Teacher Guiyu, the position of the president must be voted by all the students and teachers in the academy. I have been the president of the faculty council for 4 years, and I have done my best for the affairs of the faculty council. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Old man Guiyu dug his ears impatiently and dozed off after listening to Si Yanmu's long-winded speech. If you can be the president, then do a good job. If not, get lost. Chapter 196. All right, I'll bring you back first. Your roommate is worried about you. When he faced Yi Qing Luo, he had a kind face, but when he turned to Si Yanmu, he immediately turned fierce. Since Luo Lass is not interested in the position of president, I will let you continue to sit on it. After that, he pulled Yi Qing Luo's arm, turned around, and walked away suavely. The few people behind did not dare to step forward to stop them. After the figures of old man Guiyu and Yi Qing Luo disappeared the door, the expression on Si Yanmu's face suddenly changed. His pair of gentle eyes were covered with a touch of hostility. He clenched his fists and his chest violently rose and fell. The burning pain on his face declared the humiliation he had suffered today. President Lu Shuiyu helped Si Yanmu back to the wooden chair and took out a handkerchief to wipe the wound on his face. Si Yanmu's muscles twitched in pain. The haze in his eyes deepened. The palm on the wooden table clenched into a fist, the blue veins popping out. This freshman is too arrogant. If we don't stop her now, when she grows up, I'm afraid it will be disadvantageous to the faculty council. Lu Shuiyu looked at Si Yanmu with distress, took out the medicine, and applied it. Si Yanmu was very clear about this point. What the faculty council was most afraid of was a student that they could not control. Once out of control, it would easily cause trouble to the faculty council. What's more, the people above had instructed him to keep a close eye on Yi Qing Luo. Now that he had failed to subdue Yi Qing Luo, it would be a huge loss of face. With old man Guiyu protecting Yi Qing Luo, his task would be difficult to complete. Oh yes, President, there seems to be a secret guard protecting Yi Qing Luo. That guard strength is very high. He followed all the way into the faculty council before I was alerted. Lu Shueyu recalled the hidden guard, and her heart was in her throat. Other than Si Yanmu, there was no one else who could escape her senses. Find someone to keep an eye on her. Si Yanmu's fingers scratched his cheek, his eyes darkened. This freshman's background was absolutely not simple. As they walked out of the main entrance of the faculty council, the students coming and going looked at them. Yi Qing Luo and Old Man Goeiyu walked side by side. Old Man Goeiyu was talking about her. The students who came and went were all very surprised. The news of Yi Qing Luo being issued a statement by the faculty council to keep an eye on her for half a month had spread throughout the entire academy. Everyone knew that this new student who had just entered the academy had become famous and was being targeted by the faculty council. Moreover, not long ago, Yi Qing Luo was invited by the vice president to the faculty council under everyone's watchful eyes. The news spread like wildfire. The students all thought that even if Yi Qing Luo returned from the faculty council, she would probably have her thorns removed and become extremely obedient. But now Yi Qing Luo was actually unscathed, swaggering out of the faculty council. He was even talking and laughing with Old Man Goeiyu. Could it be this new student had joined hands with Teacher Goeiyu to give the faculty council a show of strength? Qing Luo, are you all right? Lu Xiaoyu, who had been guarding the door, anxiously walked over and pulled Yi Qing Luo over, sizing her up. Thanks to you calling the teacher in time, I'm fine. Yi Qing Luo shook her head and patted Lu Xiaoyu's shoulder. The two of them chatted for a while, seeing that it was getting late and both of them were hungry. They bade farewell to Old Man Goeiyu and went to the cafeteria. In the cafeteria, they were baptized by a wave of students' gazes. Remembering that there was a more rigorous training tomorrow morning, the two of them returned to the dormitory after their meal. The things in the dormitory hall had been tidied up. Chapter 197. She was forced to change the dormitory. Mo Yingyu's lips twitched slightly, curving into an arc. This was the first time Yi Qing Luo saw a smile on this adorable face. Lu Xiaoyu blinked her eyes and laughed gloatingly. Isn't there a strict rule that no student is allowed to change dormitory? Lu Xiaoyu's question made the hatred in Shangguan Lu Li's eyes deepen. But Shangguan Lu Li still held back her anger and swallowed it down. She staggered out of the dormitory with a lot of things in her arms. When she reached the door, Shangguan Lu Li gritted her teeth and turned her head to glare at Yi Qing Luo. You can't be arrogant for long. Just you wait. After that, she strode out of the dormitory. Her lifted leg suddenly tripped over something. Ah! Shangguan Lu Li's body fell uncontrollably to the ground, and the luggage on her flew out. Ha ha ha! A few giggles came from the door. She saw a few beautiful girls in the academy uniform standing at the door, looking at Shangguan Lu Li with ridicule. You guys! Shangguan Lu Li's eyes turned red with anger as she quickly climbed up from the ground and pointed at those girls angrily. How dare you tripped me? Are you tired of living? This kind of trick had always been used by her to trick others. Since when was it someone else's turn to trick her? Shangguan Lu Li, you have to remember, this is the Heavenly Academy, not your Shangguan family. The girls laughed. If you want to throw a tantrum, go back to your Shangguan family. This is not a place for you to behave atrociously. Shangguan Lu Li's little face flushed red. Since young, when had she suffered such grievances? Ever since she came to the academy and met Yi Qing Luo, she had been bullied. Yi Qing Luo was simply her nemesis. The hatred and disgust towards Yi Qing Luo grew deeper and deeper. Yi Qing Luo's brows raised slightly as her charming eyes wandered to the few girls at the door and fixed on their badges. The one in front was a student from the high profound class. The two behind were students from the intermediate profound class. These senior students actually came to her dormitory. Those young ladies who were laughing loudly as they watched Shangguan Lu Li pick up the parcel on the ground and fled. noticed Yi Qing Luo's line of sight and immediately turned their heads over, as a fawning smile hung on their faces. "Student Yi, the vice president has already reported the matter between you and Shangguan Liuli to the academy. The academy has allowed Shangguan Liuli to change her dormitory." The girl from the high profound class was Lu Shuiyu's follower, Jean Ran. Someone from the faculty council? Yi Qing Luo lifted her eyelids as she sneered at Jean Ran's fawning smile. The faculty council was really aggrieved this time. He was injured and humiliated, yet he still had to smile and serve her. A person like Si Yanmu, would he be willing? Yi Qing Luo didn't believe it. From Si Yanmu's eyes, Yi Qing Luo could see his ambition and strong self-esteem. He would not let her off so easily. "Who's your new roommate?" Lu Xiaoyu beamed with joy. She suddenly felt that the air in the dormitory had become fresh after Shangguan Li. That annoying woman was gone. Jean Ran smiled. "That depends on the arrangement of the academy. The new roommate should be here later." Was it the arrangement of the academy or the faculty council? This needed to be investigated. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up slightly as she smiled faintly. "Thank you for your concern. There's training tomorrow morning. Xiaoyu and I have to rest first, so we won't be sending you off." Jean Ran's smile stiffened. She wanted to take the opportunity to enter the dormitory and get some information from Yi Qing Luo. Thinking of the task that Lu Shuiyu assigned, Jean Ran forced a smile. "Student Yi, it's still early." Chapter 198. Yi Qing Luo didn't give Jean Ran any face as she turned around and left. When the room door was closed, Jean Ran was still standing at the entrance of the dormitory, stunned. The two intermediate profound class girls behind her also opened their mouths wide in shock. Rumor had it that this freshman was very arrogant. After seeing her today, she was indeed arrogant. She didn't even give face to the senior from the high profound class. No wonder the vice president asked people to keep an eye on this freshman. Lu Xiaoyu's delicate face revealed a smile and made an inviting gesture. "Senior's sister must have worked hard to come here. Would you like to come in and have a seat?" Jean Ran wanted to go in and have a seat, but staring at Yi Qing Luo's tightly shut door, she had no intention to open it. Her target was Yi Qing Luo. Without Yi Qing Luo, it would be a waste of time to stay here. Jean Ran shook her head and led the two followers out of the dormitory. Yi Qing Luo returned to her room and heard the footsteps of Jean Ran and the other two leaving. Her lips curled up into a faint, cold arc. Jean Ran's purpose in coming to the dormitory. She was naturally clear. The people from the faculty council probably hated her to the core, but they couldn't do anything about it. With old man Guiyu's appearance today to protect her, the faculty council wouldn't dare to find trouble with her in the future. But the constant harassment and flattery was still a little annoying. Yi Qing Luo sat by the bed and looked down at the cherry blossom pattern on her wrist. Her fingertips touched it lightly. Her consciousness entered the azure dew bracelet. Old man Tsang was lying leisurely on the thin mist, dressed in a white robe, as if he was one with the mist. Hearing the sound, old man Tsang glanced sideways. "Yo, lass, how come you have time to visit me today?" These words were too sour. No matter how slow Yi Qing Luo's reaction was, she could smell the strong vinegar. "Old man Tsang, did you miss me?" Yi Qing Luo raised a smile and walked under the mist, looking up at the old man in white robe. Old man Tsang landed lightly and stood in front of Yi Qing Luo. "Miss you? I don't need to wait on you. It's very comfortable. Why would I miss you?" Old man Tsang, who was in the azure dew bracelet, could see everything through Yi Qing Luo's eyes. He knew clearly what happened to Yi Qing Luo these days. Thinking up to this point, old man Tsang's expression turned cold and he heavily snorted. His white beard was blown by the wind, causing it to sway endlessly. "Now there's a flesh old man who wants to take you as a disciple. Why don't you agree?" Yi Qing Luo tilted her head. "Master Guiyu?" Old man Tsang coldly snorted. "He has flesh and blood, and he can even appear and save you when you are in the most danger. If you become his disciple, it won't be bad for you." Yi Ching Luo finally understood the meaning behind Old Man Song's words. Old Man Song was jealous of Old Man Goeyu. Old Man Ching Luo was. Luo, old man, old man. Luo. Her lips curled into a smile, and she stepped forward to hold Old Man Song's arm. Within the Azure Dew Bracelet, Old Man Song had used the Azure Dew Bracelet's spiritual energy to create a physical body. She rested her head on Old Man Song's shoulder. Her voice was clear, and elegant. "A teacher for a day, a teacher for a lifetime. From the moment I made a contract with the Azure Dew Bracelet, in my heart, you are my only master." That was the reason why she didn't agree. In Yi Ching Luo's heart, Old Man Song was her master. If it wasn't for Old Man Song, she, who had reincarnated into a different world, wouldn't have been able to get used to this kind of life in such a short amount of time. I respect Master Goeyu because he is worthy of my respect. I can't deny that I like his character, so I sent Xiaoyu to him. Chapter 199. Yi Ching Luo sincerely respected Old Man Goeyu. Adhering to the principle of keeping the goodies within the family, she brought Yi Fengyu to Old Man Goeyu. Of course, as the direct descendant of the Three Springs sect, Yi Fengyu's aptitude and innate talent were definitely not bad. Especially during those days in Three Springs sect, Yi Ching Luo had assigned him daily training tasks. With the assistance of Yi Ching Luo's medicinal pills, his profound heart jade had also improved. Old Man Goeyu cherished talent and wanted to have a close relationship with Yi Ching Luo. Naturally, he agreed to accept Yi Fengyu as his disciple. As for becoming Old Man Goeyu's disciple, Yi Ching Luo had never thought about it. "You've just entered the academy, and you've already learned a glib tongue." Old Man Song sneered, but the expression on his face eased up. Yi Ching Luo saw that Old Man Song's jealousy had dissipated by quite a bit, and her vision looked towards the dragon god cauldron that was standing not too far away. His lips curled into a determined smile. "I will work hard to raise my alchemy level, reconstruct your physical body, and return you your freedom." Old Man Song felt that his heart, which had been empty for 1,000 years, actually trembled fiercely. His body was stiff and tense under the white robe. He had not expected Yi Ching Luo to have such an idea. Reconstruct his body, he had never thought that he would be able to regain his freedom. However, Old Man Song believed it. To Yi Ching Luo, nothing was impossible. Miracles could be seen on Yi Ching Luo. Old Man Song closed his eyes and held Yi Ching Luo's hand. "All right, I'll wait for you." Yi Ching Luo softened her voice and coaxed Old Man Song with a few words. Old Man Song couldn't take it anymore, so he rushed Yi Ching Luo to cultivate. Xian Qi was something that had to be cultivated diligently in order to be able to freely circulate Xian Qi during actual combat. After not cultivating for 2 days, Yi Ching Luo settled her heart and sat cross-legged on the stone block. Inside the Azure Dew Bracelet was the most suitable place for Yi Ching Luo to cultivate. When she started to gather the surrounding spiritual qi, the entire space's spiritual qi started to surge towards Yi Ching Luo's direction bit by bit. 1 heavenly cycle, 2 heavenly cycles, the absorbed spiritual energy revolved around his profound jade heart and slowly merged into it. Time flew by unknowingly. While Yi Ching Luo was meditating, she vaguely felt that she had grasped onto something. It was an extremely subtle feeling that disappeared in a flash. Barrier. It was a barrier to advancement. Yi Ching Luo was ecstatic. She was stuck at the yellow, mystic 9th grade, unable to break through no matter what. Today, while he was meditating, he had managed to grab hold of this barrier. The opportunity to level up had come. The moment Yi Ching Luo got excited, the spiritual qi became even more turbulent and rushed towards Yi Ching Luo. An overwhelming amount of qi enveloped Yi Ching Luo in it. That barrier to advancement seemed to be right in front of her, as if she could grab it with a single stretch of her hand. Just at this moment, Yi Qing Luo's expression suddenly changed. With his sharp senses, he felt a murderous aura rising in the surroundings. Killing intent, Yi Qing Luo sunk her profound qi into her profound jade heart and gave up on the chance to continue capturing the barrier's advancement. Her spiritual consciousness quickly returned to her body. She suddenly opened her eyes. There was no light in the pitch-black room. Outside the dormitory, there was a stream of air drifting in along with the wind. From afar, in just a few steps, he had already entered her room. Judging from his footsteps and movements, it shouldn't be his first time sneaking into a room. That unfamiliar aura was getting closer and closer. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she could faintly see a well-built figure slowly approaching her bedside. Chapter 200. The murderous aura gradually thickened as the killer approached. The cold moonlight shone through the half-open window. The killer raised the big knife in his hand, reflecting a cold gleam under the moonlight. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo turned over and stood up. The feather fan in her hand unfolded and drew a slight wave of profound qi. However, her profound qi dissipated into thin air as it floated towards the killer. Yi Qing Luo frowned, staring at the killer vigilantly, and was about to jump off the bed. A palm-sized hairy ball leaped in from the window. Its bright tiger eyes met with Yi Qing Luo's. The claws that were raised in mid-air suddenly froze. The little body couldn't keep its balance and fell from the windowsill. Yi Qing Luo didn't have time to shout out. Suddenly, an elegant sandalwood scent filled her nose. A strong and powerful arm circled around Yi Qing Luo's slender waist. With a thump, the killer fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Yi Qing Luo's body was pressed down on the bed. A man's low and scorching breath came into her ears. "Ah, Luo, did you miss me?" "Di Mo Xian." Yi Qing Luo put her hands on his chest. "Get out of my way." This man, why did he want to take advantage of her the moment he appeared? And this time he directly pressed her down on the bed. What was he trying to do? If someone pushed the door open at this time, damn, she couldn't wash herself clean even if she jumped into the Yellow River. Di Mo Xian put one arm on Yi Qing Luo's shoulder, the other hand stroked the hair on her forehead. "I miss you." "Miss your head? Didn't we just see each other last night?" Yi Qing Luo turned her head away, grumpily. This was the opening line every time, as if he really missed her. "Ah, Luo, you are in trouble." Di Mo Xian chuckled. His body moved slightly and leaned on Yi Qing Luo's side. One arm stretched out, slightly leaned to the side, and pulled Yi Qing Luo into his arms. Yi Qing Luo's head was pillowed on the man's arm, and her whole body seemed to be buried in the man's arms. A warm touch came to her earlobe. The man's voice was low and hoarse. "Just entered the hospital for 2 days. You had a conflict with your roommate, and even the faculty council. Now even the killer is here. You are really Ah Luo." Beside her ears was the man's low and deep laughter. There was even a hint of pride in his tone. What's there to be proud of? Yi Qing Luo felt that she and Di Mo Xian were totally not on the same channel. "Do you want me to help you settle these matters?" Di Mo Xian's slender fingers caressed Yi Qing Luo's silky hair. I just want to study well in the academy." Yi Qing Luo rolled her eyes. He'll deal with it? Then her days in the academy would not be peaceful anymore. Yi Qing Luo snuggled in Di Mo Xian's arms and popped her head out. Her line of sight fell onto the little furball who was lying on the bed pretending to be asleep. "You brought my Chi-Chi out again?" The little furry ball curled up its tail and continued to pretend to be asleep. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. "So you're hiding something from me?" Chi-Chi curled up even tighter. However, it could feel that its master's eyes were locked on it. Chi-Chi was still scared. She opened her eyes and blinked a few times. Yi Qing Luo was hugged tightly by Di Mo Xian and couldn't move at all. She could only use her eyes to interrogate. "Where did you go?" Chi-Chi shook its head and looked at Dmo Xian. The hand that was across her waist suddenly pinched Yi-Ching Luo's waist. Chapter 201. Stroll. Yi-Ching Luo raised her eyebrows suspiciously, expressing her disbelief. Dmo Xian was a great god who had his own BGM. Was there a need to borrow the help of a sacred beast to act cool? Moreover, how was the nine-tailed fox not awe-inspiring? Other than strolling around, what else can I do to your Chi-Chi? Dmo Xian's long arm exerted a little strength as he shifted Yi-Ching Luo's petite body upwards. Half of Yi-Ching Luo's body was leaning on Dmo Xian's chest. For pairs of eyes met, and Dmo Xian's thin lips curled into a devilish smile, his brows filled with mirth. Yi-Ching Luo saw her own reflection in his pitch-black pupils. In his eyes there was only her. His heart suddenly began to pound uncontrollably, skipping a few beats. Following that, Yi-Ching Luo's eyelashes drooped slightly as she unnaturally shifted her line of sight. Her cheeks flushed red and gradually heated up. This man, at the slightest disagreement, he used his charm, but she was a sucker for it. Yi-Ching Luo naturally liked beautiful things that were pleasing to the eyes and made one's body and mind happy. What's more, Dmo Xian's looks and temperament completely conformed to her aesthetics. This hook made Yi-Ching Luo feel like a little deer was running around. She shot a glance at Dmo Xian and discovered that he was still smiling, looking at her in ridicule. It was as if he wanted to imprint every expression on her face into his mind. Yi-Ching Luo couldn't stand the stare. Although she was a modern woman, she was, after all, the head of a hidden family. She hung out with a bunch of old men all year round. His thoughts were not that unrestrained. She could still accept teasing a handsome man verbally, but being teased instead, Yi-Ching Luo expressed her inability to accept it, using such an intimate position to lie on top of Dmo Xian. Yi-Ching Luo's breathing became messed up as she clenched her teeth tightly. "You're using your charm to change the topic. I'll think that you've really done something to my Chi-Chi." She took a look at Chi-Chi and then looked at Dmo Xian as her lips curled into a teasing smile. Humph, humph, Dmo Xian with a heavy taste. Not even saint beasts were spared. However, this smile, Yi-Ching Luo wasn't able to laugh till the end. Her back was encircled by a long and powerful arm. The woman's soft and delicate body was pressed against the man's hard chest without any gap. The man stretched out his slender fingers and lifted Yi-Ching Luo's little face. He bent down and kissed her, who had a smile on her lips. Their lips touched in a light kiss. The man's inky black eyes were dyed black, and there was some kind of emotion in them. He deepened the kiss. Their lips and teeth intertwined tightly. Yi-Ching Luo's mind instantly went blank. Her petite body went limp and her breathing became heavy. She could only clench Dmo Xian's collar tightly, bit by bit, tightening and tightening. He felt dizzy, until Dmo Xian loosened his grip on her lips and tightened his arms. Yi-Ching Luo then regained her senses. The numbness on his lips was still there. The man's elegant sandalwood fragrance lingered in her mouth for a long time. In her ears, Dmo Xian's heavy breathing was accompanied by his unique magnetism. "Ah, Luo, I'm not interested in Chi-Chi, but I want to do something to you." Yi-Ching Luo was flustered. F***CK. This was the rhythm of being flirted with instead of being flirted with. Not only did she fail to counterattack, she was even taken advantage of by Dmo Xian. Simply too shameless. "Fine. You're strong, you're awesome. I admit defeat." Yi-Ching Luo gritted her teeth. Her hands were held by Dmo Xian, and she couldn't move. She buried her face directly in the man's chest and used his clothes to wipe her mouth to express her disdain for him. At this time, Yi-Ching Luo's mind was full of cultivating profound qi, working hard to advance, and after surpassing Dmo Xian, she could torment him however she wanted. Chapter 202. The next morning, when Yiqing Luo woke up, Mo Xian was no longer by her side. The assassin lying under the bed had also disappeared, and there was no trace of him left. He should have been taken care of by Mo Xian. Yiqing Luo mumbled as she got up to wash up. What was that man trying to do? For 2 consecutive nights, he had occupied her bed and shared the same pillow with her without any explanation. Did he not have a place to stay? How could he ruin a young lady's reputation? What kind of hobby was that? She wasted the whole night and did not go to the azure dew bracelet to cultivate. Just a little bit more and she would be able to touch the barrier and successfully break through. That killer, what was his background? What was certain was that the killer was definitely from the Heavenly Academy. Was it a master, a student, or a worker in the academy? The Heavenly Academy was heavily guarded, and if he was not from the Heavenly Academy, it was impossible to sneak in. And someone who dared to kill in the Heavenly Academy, he had guts. Yiqing Luo was deep in thought when someone knocked on the door, and Lu Xiaoyu's voice was heard. "Qing Luo, are you awake?" "Come in." Yiqing Luo hid the deep meaning in her eyes and picked up the comb from the dressing table to comb her hair. She gathered her long hair into a bundle and tied it tightly with a hair tie. Lu Xiaoyu pushed the door and saw Yiqing Luo standing up from the dressing table. She was also wearing the same green and white uniform. But when worn on Yiqing Luo, there was a hint of coldness and aloofness, but also an enchanting and charming temperament. It was like a blooming lotus flower, elegant and refined. Lu Xiaoyu, who was used to seeing Yiqing Luo in red, couldn't help but blush when she saw the simple and elegant uniform. "Why are you up so early?" Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows. The instructor gave them the opportunity to delay reporting to the square by 2 hours, but she didn't expect Lu Xiaoyu to wake up early. After all, for the next whole month, we have to wake up early to train and form a habit. Yiqing Luo nodded. To become stronger, to improve their strength, and to stand firm. What they needed was not to squeeze out time to rest, but not to waste any time to train. They might not be able to keep up with the progress of the training if they were to report in 2 hours later. The 2 of them arrived at the freshman training field. At this moment, there were hundreds of exhausted students standing on the field. All of them yawned, unable to lift their spirits. When those students saw Yiqing Luo and Lu Xiaoyu, they all opened their mouths wide. "Aren't you allowed to sleep for 2 more hours? Why are you here so early?" "A day's plan lies in the morning. Don't waste any time." Yiqing Luo replied in a good mood. A faint smile appeared on her face. "Just like what the instructor had asked me before, I didn't come to the academy to show off how strong I am, but to make myself stronger." The surrounding students had some feelings towards this sentence, while some felt that Yiqing Luo was hypocritical. All kinds of colored eyes, to Yiqing Luo, were of no importance. She pulled Lu Xiaoyu to stand in the line. On the second floor of the freshman training ground, 2 tall and muscular figures were leaning against a pillar. "This freshman is a little interesting." Instructor Chu's lips curled up slightly as he looked at the beautiful figure in the crowd. Instructor Ho's face was cold, and he did not say a word. It was considered as a tacit approval of his words. He turned around, both hands on the horizontal railing, and looked down at the students. Chapter 203. It was nearing the time when the school bell rang. More than 300 freshmen had lined up in the field. It could be seen that yesterday's first training had given rise to fear in these students by the 2 instructors. After seeing the appearance of the 2 instructors, the students who were yawning and standing crookedly immediately stood up straight. "Very good." Instructor Chu glanced at the freshmen. No one is absent. The students breathed a sigh of relief. This was a good start. If the instructors were in a good mood, the torture wouldn't be so heavy. Immediately after, they heard Instructor Ho said coldly, "Now line up and run 5 laps around the inner line of the square. Start." "Damn, still running. Didn't we run yesterday?" "Instructor, If we continue to run, it will cost our lives." When the students heard this, their previously tensed nerves instantly broke. They wailed endlessly and simply wanted to cry, but had no tears. Start. Instructor Ho didn't listen to their complaints and shouted mercilessly. The students trembled, no matter how unwilling they were. They still lifted their legs and began to run. One by one, the freshmen ran from the freshman training ground to the square, then to the inner line of the square and began to run one lap after another. This time, Instructor Ho arranged for Yi Qing Luo and Lu Xiaoyu to be the first. After one lap, the two of them were already far ahead. With yesterday's start, although the students' legs were tired and physically and mentally exhausted, they had obviously improved a lot compared to yesterday. It wasn't until the second lap that the students gradually quit. 2 hours later, Yi Qing Luo finished running 5 laps, stood at the finishing line, and began to stretch her muscles. Running was supposed to be done step by step. The instructors asked them to run 5 laps at one time. If it wasn't like Yi Qing Luo and Lu Xiaoyu, who used to wake up early to run every day, no one could persist for 5 laps at once. Yi Qing Luo could see that the purpose of the instructors was not to let these students run 5 laps at all. It was just to stimulate their potential and let them get used to this rhythm. After Yi Qing Luo finished massaging her legs, she walked to the rest area and took a glass of water to drink. Instructor Chu walked over and looked at Yi Qing Luo with his sharp eyes. "Tired?" "I'm all right." Yi Qing Luo smiled, other than the sweat on her forehead. She wasn't panting too much. "Did you undergo training before coming to the academy?" Instructor Chu raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. "Yes, I don't want to be treated as trash again, so I set a goal for myself to train." When Instructor Chu heard her answer, he smiled with interest. This girl's answer was quite honest. "Your foundation is above these people. How about starting tomorrow? The new students will do 5 laps and you will do 10 laps. There was a flash of excitement in Instructor Chu's eyes, but it was fleeting. So fast that Yi Qing Luo thought that she had seen wrongly. Why did she feel that Instructor Chu seemed to want her to run 10 laps? The instructor said that he would arrange a suitable training method for everyone based on yesterday's training. I will listen to everything the instructor says. 10 laps. Yi Qing Luo had no objections. She came to the academy with the intention of becoming stronger. Instructor Chu nodded with satisfaction, then turned around and returned to the finishing point of the square. He raised his voice and said, "Those who have finished 5 laps, report back to the freshman training ground. Those who haven't finished, run until today." Those who had quit halfway and didn't have time to rest, when they heard Instructor Chu's words, they braced themselves and joined the running team. It seemed that yesterday was really just a test, and today was the official training. Chapter 204. Yi Qing Luo was the first to follow Instructor Chu back to the freshman training ground. The freshman training ground was a closed field, about the size of Yi Qing Luo's new courtyard in the Three Springs sect. It was about 600 meters around the field. In the corner of the training ground, there were a lot of self-made training equipment. It was comparable to the training Yi Qing Luo received in the Hidden Family in her previous life. Go and do 200 push-ups. After Instructor Chu brought Yi Qing Luo to the training ground, he didn't wait for her to look around and directly gave an order. After running 5 laps inside the square, Yi Qing Luo's legs were already a little tired. She didn't protest when she heard Instructor Chu's words. She walked to the place designated by Instructor Chu and began to do push-ups. The movements were standard and smooth. Breathing and muscles were in sync. The smile on Instructor Chu's lips gradually deepened as he nodded in satisfaction. This Yi Qing Luo was completely different from the other students. It was as if she had undergone professional training. She didn't need any guidance at all to complete all the basic training perfectly. There wasn't the slightest flaw in her training. Moreover, she wouldn't be like the other students who would complain endlessly about their assigned goals. He was willing to teach such sensible freshmen even if there were another 100 of them. Yi Qing Luo adjusted her breathing and frequency and did one after another. On the second floor of the training ground, a few masters dressed in white robes with a horizontal bar on their shoulders were accompanied by a young man dressed in black. When passing by the field, the young man paused slightly and looked at Yi Qing Luo with a pair of indifferent eyes. This pair of eyes was cold and aloof, as if looking down on everything. There was no ripple in his pupils, as calm as still water. His expression was icy cold without any emotion. The young man exuded a cold aura from head to toe. Master Chu, this is the freshman training ground. The freshman is doing training. The master at the side quickly explained when he saw the situation. Freshman? The young man stared at Yi Qing Luo. His eyes were deep and his thin lips moved slightly. Can she take this training? She's the most powerful new student we've recruited this year. A master recognized Yi Qing Luo, who was doing push-ups. Although her profound grade is not high, but her potential is full. She's Yi Qing Luo. The master at the side was suddenly enlightened and shifted his gaze to Yi Qing Luo. This freshman is indeed a talent. If she is nurtured well, she will definitely become an influential figure in the Western continent in the future. The young man squinted his cold eyes as he muttered softly, Yi Qing Luo. It's indeed her. The master didn't hear the lad's complaint and shook his head when he saw that he was interested in Yi Qing Luo. This new student has only been in the academy for 2 days, but his name has already spread throughout the academy. Old man Goe, you couldn't wait to take her as his disciple and take care of her. Moreover, she has his majesty behind her. The youth's expressionless face changed a little. He suddenly raised his eyes and stared at the teacher with his cold, dark eyes. Dizun? Yes, she seems to be the disciple of the Overlord. The young man frowned slightly as if he was deep in thought. As for Yi Qing Luo, who was doing her push-ups, she naturally felt that someone was staring at her. It seemed like they were still talking about her. Just as she finished 200 push-ups, she stood up and looked towards the second floor. On the second floor stood a few masters and a young man. When her vision was fixed on the young man's face, Yi Qing Luo clicked her tongue. She didn't expect to meet a face that was comparable to Mo Xian's. It was just that this face looked dull, cold, and arrogant. Chapter 205. Sit for half an hour and do 200 weighted squats. Seeing Yi Qing Luo stood up and began to stretch her limbs, Instructor Chu issued another order. Yi Qing Luo responded and moved her gaze away from the young man, sitting cross-legged on the ground. Instructor Chu was considerate. He even took the initiative to pour a glass of water and handed it to Yi Qing Luo. The young man on the second floor originally looked into Yi Qing Luo's eyes, his indifferent face hooked into a shallow arc. However, Yi Qing Luo just glanced at him and didn't look at him again. Instead, he looked at Instructor Chu, who was standing next to him, silently. The young man's handsome brows tightly knitted together and his eyes darkened. She dared to look away. She didn't recognize him. The master next to him sensed the cold air from the young man and immediately stopped talking. After a while, the young man waved his sleeves, put his hands behind his back, and spat out a word coldly, "Go!" Instructor Chu began to urge her after sitting for just half an hour. Yi Qing Luo got up and took out 2 iron wristbands from the training equipment, each weighing 50 kilograms. She put them on and began to do squats. 1, 1, 1. Instructor Chu crossed his arms in front of his chest. His face was full of satisfaction. This freshman had a strong willpower and endurance it was rare to see. Even the students from the high profound class, after doing so many exercises in a row, they would more or less show some complaints and reluctance. It was no wonder that old man Goeyu had identified Yi Qing Luo at first sight. Even he had a kind of impulse to train hard to see how strong Yi Qing Luo could be. When Yi Qing Luo did 70 over, Lu Xiaoyu also completed 5 laps and rushed to the freshman training ground. Similarly, she was asked to do push-ups by the instructor. However, Lu Xiaoyu only needed to do 150. The two of them did their own thing. One by one, numbers popped out from their mouths. No one complained at all. Yiqing Luo was very tired, a full 10 kilometers of jogging, plus 200 push-ups and then weighted squats. After finishing, Instructor Chu issued new instructions for Yiqing Luo to run another 5 laps around the training ground with this 100-kilogram wristband. Although this training ground was much smaller than the inner line of the plaza, it was much smaller. But after a series of training, to run these 5 laps, even if Yiqing Luo trained frequently, it was still a little too much. His arms and legs were so tired and heavy that they did not feel like his own. However, Yiqing Luo relied on the willpower in her bones to complete all the training. Yiqing Luo was sweating profusely as her face turned pale. He didn't even have the strength to wipe the sweat off his face. She sat heavily on the ground, gasping for air. His limbs were so sore that it was difficult for him to even move. There was even a faint twitching sensation. Yiqing Luo leaned against the wall and closed her eyes to rest for a while before she slowly opened her eyes. The moment she opened her eyes, she discovered that there were several pairs of eyes staring at her. In the freshman training field, there were actually over 100 students. Yesterday, only she and Lu Xiaoyu had completed 10 laps, and there were 2 other students who were only a few steps behind. Today, there were actually over 100 of them. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched in ridicule as she closed her eyes once again. The students who were admitted into the Heavenly Academy were definitely not useless, and their own strength was definitely not weak. Yesterday, they were indeed lazy on purpose. The training exercises were all the same. Instructor Chu decided the number of exercises according to each person's qualifications. After resting for a while, she suddenly heard footsteps approaching her. Chapter 206. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes and frowned. There were 2 teenagers standing in front of her. They were slender but tall, with a polite smile on their immature faces. "Student Yi, we want to thank you." "Thank me?" Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows. Had she ever done anything worthy of gratitude? The 2 teenagers squatted down and faced Yiqing Luo. The teenager on the left curled his lips and smiled brightly. "My name is Dong Huanglang. You spoke for us when we jogged 5 laps in the square yesterday." The teenager on the right was slightly indifferent and nodded slightly to Yiqing Luo. "My name is Qi Yijing." Yiqing Luo was suddenly enlightened. "It's you guys." She remembered that the 2 teenagers were only a few steps away from reaching the finish line. But both of them didn't make it to the end and fainted on the track at the same time. Sigh. It was such a pity yesterday, just a little bit more. I won. Dong Huanglang shook his head and sighed, sitting next to Yiqing Luo. He put his hand on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. "Fortunately, you helped us to speak to the black-faced instructor, so we passed the training." Perhaps it was because of Dong Huanglang. Yiqing Luo saw her own brother and didn't feel disgusted with his action. "I just said what I thought. There's no need to thank you." Yiqing Luo smiled slightly. "Moreover, under the countless students who gave up, you can still persist. This kind of persistence is very touching." "I still have to thank you. Without today's 2 hours of rest, my legs would definitely be broken." Dong Huanglang leaned his whole body over. "Lang." Qi Yijing's eyes swept over Dong Huanglang's hand. "No matter how much you admire Student Yi, she is also a woman. Don't touch her." Dong Huanglang retracted his hand bitterly. Yes, 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 old man Jing, men and women should not touch each other. I understand." Yiqing Luo looked at the both of them as she couldn't help but burst out laughing. "You two have a good relationship." This kind of relationship was very sincere. It made Yiqing Luo envious. "Who has a good relationship with him?" Dong Huanglang snorted lightly. "Besides bullying me, he only knows how to bully me. I will die of anger if I have a good relationship with this kind of person." Qi Yijing just glanced at him indifferently and was too lazy to speak. Instructor Chu shuttled back and forth among the students, checking and adjusting the irregular movements, and was about to check on Yiqing Luo. Qi Yijing pulled Dong Huanglang up and looked at Yiqing Luo. If there is a chance for us to repay your kindness, please do not hesitate to look for us. We still have other training to do, so we will leave first. After that, without waiting for Yiqing Luo's reply, he pulled Dong Huanglang back to the training team. He came suddenly and left in a hurry. These two youths were really willful. Yiqing Luo smiled helplessly as she supported herself against the wall and stood up. After resting, his limbs felt even weaker. After taking a few steps, he felt a stabbing pain in his bones. The after-effects of his limbs penetrating through his limbs had arrived. You have completed all the training. Go back to the dormitory to rest first. Instructor Chu noticed Yiqing Luo's movements and walked over. Yiqing Luo nodded. She indeed couldn't wait to return to the dormitory and have a good sleep. After submitting the comprehensive data of yesterday and today's training to the dean, the school's top management will assign you to your classes after 5 p.m. Remember to report to the training ground. Instructor Chu reminded. Yiqing Luo responded and said goodbye to Lu Xiaoyu, who was doing heavy squats, and left the freshman training ground. Chapter 207. She had just arrived at the dormitory and had yet to step through the door when a respectful voice came from behind. "Student Yi, please wait a moment." Yiqing Luo frowned as she turned her head impatiently to look behind her. The person behind her was dressed like an attendant, holding 2 bottles of medicine in his hands. "This is a gift from my young master." The attendant held up the 2 bottles with both hands and bent down to deliver them to Yiqing Luo. "This bottle is for external injuries. Apply it on the 4 limbs to dispel the fatigue. This bottle is for internal consumption. After taking it, the body will recover its vitality." Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes and stood up straight against the door. "Your young master." She had never seen this attendant before. What he was wearing was also not the uniform of a worker in the academy. He should be someone from outside the school. Who was his young master? The attendant did not answer, but moved his hands closer to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo was an alchemist herself, from the fragrance of the medicine. She could judge that these 2 bottles were absolutely precious. Only those above the level of an alchemist could refine such precious items. Could it be Dmo Xian? The current her indeed needed such precious pills to replenish her vitality, and she did not have the time nor the energy to refine pills in the azure dew bracelet. Immediately, she did not stand on ceremony and took the bottle. The attendant smiled, saluted again, and turned to leave. "Who is your young master?" Yiqing Luo stopped the attendant and asked. The attendant paused for a moment and replied, "My young master's surname is Chu." After saying that, the attendant left straight away. "Chu!" Yiqing Luo frowned and looked down at the 2 bottles in her hands. Did she know someone with the surname Chu? In her memory, she did not seem to know such a person. Yiqing Luo knew that she had a photographic memory. The other party could take out pills that were above the level of an alchemist. His identity was certainly not ordinary. She should have an impression. "You're back?" The dormitory door was suddenly opened. Mo Ying stood at the door, looking up and staring at Yiqing Luo with empty eyes. Yiqing Luo restrained her thoughts and put the bottle in her sleeve. "Don't you need to go to class?" When Mo Inua heard her question, the corner of her mouth twitched, revealing a strange smile. "There's no need for class. Our class doesn't have a teacher." Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes. "No master dares to teach? What class is it that's so powerful?" Mo Ingu was expressionless again. She inched towards the dormitory. "You're back quite early. It seems that the freshman training isn't difficult for you." Seeing that she had changed the topic, Yiqing Luo didn't pursue further. The exhaustion from her body made her not in the mood to continue the conversation. With a wave of his hand, he returned to his room. Behind him, Emo Inua, who had returned to her wooden chair, looked up. A faintly discernible ray of light flashed in those usually empty and lifeless eyes. That stiff and expressionless, lowly face also had a hint of a smile that wasn't a smile. After returning to the room, Yi-Ching Luo sprawled onto the bed without a care for her image. Chi-Chi came out from the void and jumped to the side of Yi-Ching Luo's head. It stuck out its soft little tongue and licked her gently. Yi-Ching Luo turned over and met Chi-Chi's black tiger eyes. "Ai!" Chi-Chi opened its mouth and let out a low whimper, as if it was distressed for her. Yi-Ching Luo smiled and rubbed her face on its little body. "I'm going to rest for a while. Wake me up before 5 p.m. "Ow, Chi-Chi responded and obediently curled up its little body, lying next to Yi-Ching Luo. Chapter 208. It was the medicine bottle that the attendant had sent over. Yi-Ching Luo's fingers moved, and Chi-Chi had already placed one of the medicine bottles in her hand. After unscrewing it, a refreshing medicinal fragrance filled her nostrils. Just by smelling this medicinal fragrance, her body and mind seemed to be healed. No wonder it was a precious medicinal pill. Yi-Ching Luo poured out a dark-colored pill, a very small one. Chi-Chi's head leaned over and nudged Yi-Ching Luo's hand, indicating for her to swallow the pill. As a sacred beast, Chi-Chi's ability to recognize medicine was not weak. It immediately sniffed out that this pill was good for its master's body. Yi-Ching Luo swallowed one and closed her eyes. Immediately, she circulated the profound qi within her body and guided the medicinal effect to her limbs and bones. Wherever the medicinal pill passed through, the heavy and sore feeling on her body seemed to be cleansed by a warm spring water. After a few circulations in her body, Yi-Ching Luo opened her eyes again, and the tiredness in her body was swept away. The effect was really amazing. Yi-Ching Luo weighed the medicine bottle, and from the sound, there were at least 7 or 8 pills in it. Who was that Master Zhu? Why would he send an attendant to deliver medicine to her? Such a precious medicinal pill. One was worth a few hundred gold coins. The other party had so many pills in one shot. After thinking for a while, Yi-Ching Luo couldn't find anyone with the surname Zhu from her memory. She could only give up. Whatever for now. She didn't feel any malicious intent from the other party. Since the other party would send her medicine, he would show up sooner or later. By then, after clarifying the other party's purpose, she would repay him with a better medicinal pill. Yi-Ching Luo placed the 2 medicine bottles into the profound phoenix ring and closed her eyes to rest again. The physical tiredness could be dispelled by the medicinal pill, but the mental tiredness could only be recovered through sleep. There was still an hour before 5 p.m. when Yi-Ching Luo was woken up by Chi-Chi. Her body was sticky and full of perspiration. Yi-Ching Luo couldn't stand the thick smell of perspiration on her body. She took the wooden bucket to the water bamboo outside the dormitory and collected several buckets of water before returning to her room to take a bath. After tidying herself up, she finally felt refreshed. When she walked out of the room, she saw Lu Xiaoyu walking out in a daze with a sleepy look on her face. Yi-Ching Luo couldn't help but burst out laughing as she went forward to hold her back. "Hurry up and take a shower. We're about to report to the training ground." Yi-Ching Luo stuffed her into the room and lifted the bucket to fill the water for Lu Xiaoyu. Lu Xiaoyu rubbed her eyes, and after smelling the perspiration on her body, she covered her nose in disgust and didn't stand on ceremony with Yi-Ching Luo. After taking a shower, Lu Xiaoyu was much more clear-headed. Her exhaustion was also alleviated. There was still a quarter of an hour before reporting to the training ground, so the 2 of them immediately rushed to the training ground. In the training field, hundreds of students had already lined up and stood ramrod straight. These people's faces were pale, and their bodies were covered in sweat as they gasped for air. There was still a group of students who hadn't completed the instructor's task. They were still working hard, their mouths spitting out numbers one after another. Perhaps it was because of the news of the division of classes, None of the people who had fainted after running 1 or 2 laps in the square yesterday had fainted today. In front of the training ground, there were already many white-robed teachers. The horizontal bars on their shoulders were 4 at the highest level and 2 at the lowest level. They must be the teachers who taught the classes. They specially came over to take a look at their new students. With the teachers around, it was no wonder that these new students were trying their best to complete all the training. What if the teachers from the high profound class took a fancy to them? Chapter 209. The group of students were dirty and sweaty, whereas the masters were dressed in white robes and looked like immortals. It was a stark contrast. Yi Qing Luo pulled Lu Xiaoyu to the team. The two of them were refreshed and formed a sharp contrast with the group of freshmen. The gazes of the few masters fell onto Yi Qing Luo and Lu Xiaoyu. Immediately, they raised their palms and placed a palm-sized wooden token on top of it. The shape of this wooden token was the same as the wooden token that represented the identity of the students. This was the wooden token that represented the identity of the masters. It recorded the identity of each freshman and the information of their profound great ability, as well as the past 2 days of training and the evaluation given by the instructors. If the masters wanted to know someone's information, they only needed to look at the wooden token and silently recite the other party's name. The masters looked at the wooden token for a while and immediately began to discuss. When the bell rang, Instructor He and Instructor Chu called up the remaining 60 students who had not finished their training and asked them to stand back in line. From now on, Elder Yunxiang will assign you to your classes. Instructor Chu stood at the side of the team, and his voice was loud and clear. This class assignment is based on the comprehensive results of the admission assessment, ability assessment, and the past 2 days of training. No matter which class you are assigned to, you are still students of the Heavenly Academy. If you feel indignant, you can improve your strength and wait for a year later. There was a rule in the Heavenly Academy. Every year, there would be a competition between the 3 classes. For example, the students from the low class could challenge the students from the intermediate class after passing the assessment of the low class. The opponent of the challenge was randomly arranged by the Heavenly Pagoda. If the students from the low class won, they could become students from the intermediate class. The student from the intermediate class would be demoted to the low class. If the students from the low class failed the challenge, they would continue to stay in the low class and wait for next year's opportunity. And the students from the intermediate class who were challenged would get a prize from the Heavenly Pagoda. This rule seemed to be a cruel elimination system, but in fact it was a very good way to compete. Only pressure could drive people to stimulate their own potential. Survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest. Are you ready? Instructor Ho shouted again. All the students, although exhausted, but at this time is like a big bell, ready. The 2 instructors stood upright and said to the row of teachers in front of them, Elder Yunxiang, you can start distributing the classes. Among the headmasters, an old man stood up slowly. Yi Qing Luo then realized that this old man's white robe was different from the other masters. The sleeves and collar of the old man were embroidered with golden thread. His waistband was also embroidered with a golden tiger pattern. On his chest badge were 5 red horizontal bars. Ahem. The old man coughed lightly, with a kind smile on his face. I am the Academy's Elder Yunxiang. Welcome all the students to enter the Heavenly Academy and pass the various assessments smoothly. The students have worked hard. The freshmen immediately shook their heads. Not at all, not at all. Elder Yunxiang's smile became gentler. When his vision collided with Yi Qing Luo's, Yi Qing Luo acutely noticed that Elder Yunxiang seemed to have paused on her for a moment. Just one look, but Yi Qing Luo could tell that a flash of cold intent flashed past his eyes. Elder Yunxiang seemed to hate her. Not waiting for Yi Qing Luo to take a closer look, Elder Yunxiang had already moved his sight away, still smiling kindly. Students, please wait for a moment after I have discussed with the other masters, we will start to distribute the classes. Chapter 210. Another person walked in from outside the training ground. A tall and slender figure with a cold face. Wasn't it the Vice President of Faculty Council, Lu Shuiyu? Vice President, distribute these to all the masters. Elder Yunxiang's old face turned into a chrysanthemum when he saw Lu Shuiyu. Lu Shuiyu carried a basket of painting tubes and walked towards the masters. Each of them was given a painting tube and immediately retreated to one side. The masters opened the painting tubes and spread out the scrolls inside. On these scrolls, there were hundreds of freshmen's class allocation. The Heavenly Academy had always respected their masters. Therefore, for the freshmen's class allocation, the academy would be based on the master's preference. The Elders Department would allocate each student into a class based on the overall strength of the freshmen. The masters of each class could discuss with the masters of the other class to exchange students based on their preferences. After everything was discussed, the class of the students was finally decided. This was also the reason why the masters endured the stench of sweat and came to the freshman training ground early in the morning. Only by seeing the aptitude of each student with their own eyes would they know if this student could be taken in and if they had the aptitude to train them into excellent students. There was competition between the students and also between the masters. If the headmaster wanted to raise his status, he had to bring out the best students. Only then would he be able to get the bar to raise the badge. After the masters spread out the scrolls, all of them coincidentally looked for the same person's name. After seeing that name, all of their faces changed into astonishment and disbelief. Elder Yunxiang, this. What's going on? Elder Yunxiang was still, smiling kindly. He flicked his sleeves and said, "Other than her, you can choose any of the other students." What a pity. The masters shook their heads helplessly and sighed. Yi Qing Luo had been paying attention to the masters and Elder Yunxiang. Suddenly, she saw a few masters looking at her with an extremely strange gaze. Forget it if it was just one. One after another, all of them stared at her. After staring for a while, they looked away with a pitiful expression. Yi Qing Luo had goosebumps from being stared at. These masters, what did they mean? What was the meaning of these gazes? Somehow, there was an ominous premonition. These masters' strange behavior should be because they saw her class allocation. Could it be that he was assigned to the low profound class? Just as Yi Qing Luo was guessing in her heart, those masters had already adjusted the freshmen that they were going to teach. The few of them reorganized themselves and decided on the final class allocation. Elder Yunxiang took the scroll and passed it to Lu Shuiyu. Lu Shuiyu began to read. Students of Low Profound Class 1, please listen carefully to your name. He read out the names one by one. About a quarter of an hour later, Lu Shuiyu took a deep breath and read. Students of Low Profound Class 2, please listen to your name. Every Xin class was divided into Class 1 and Class 2. Class 1 was basically made up of freshmen from the academy. Their aptitudes weren't that great, but there were still areas where they could be molded. Class 2 was mostly made up of older students from the Xian grade class, which was slightly more advanced than Class 1. In the Low Profound Class 2, Yi Qing Luo heard Yi Fengyu's name. How could your brother be assigned to the low class? Lu Xiaoyu's face wrinkled into a ball when she heard this. She tugged at Yi Qing Luo's sleeve as her voice was suppressed to an extremely low volume. Hasn't he been taken in as a disciple by Master Guiyu? No matter what, he can't possibly be in the low profound class. Yi Qing Luo smiled and shook her head at her, indicating her to stop talking.